Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto x Inko x Mitsuki harem in My Hero Academia. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Hector Flores and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction only. Other franchises will be included. In this world, people are born with the potential for either amazing or even tragic abilities that let a normal man fly, or a person who can even breathe underwater, but also feel like they are cursed because their ability changed their bodies so drastically they can't live as a normal human being. These abilities are called quirks. All those that master and use their quirks for the good of the common people are given a test and eventually a license. These are called the professional heroes. But just as there are heroes, there are also people who use their quirks for their benefit or to harm others. These people are the villains. So in a quirk-biased world, the struggle between heroes and villains is very much real. However, there is a third group, a group that is often ignored if not discriminated against, treated as garbage rather than people. These are the people that are born without a quirk. They coined up a term for them too, and of course, they did. They are called the quirkless. Being quirkless has led to some of the cruelest situations people can imagine. Parents abandon their child, for you see it takes time for a quirk to awaken, and at age 6 a child is given a basic medical exam. Since medical science knows the signs of a quirk being present, it became a rather routine pediatric exam. If the child does not have a quirk, the parent considers him or her to be a waste of resources, effort, and even space. Some are abandoned and left to die, and some are killed by their parents in gruesome ways that make look like an accident. This is the story of Izuku Midoriya, the one that one day would be called the symbol of peace, the very best hero, but that is only after many trials, many heartaches, and much suffering, for you see, Izuku, while he will be a great hero, he was however born quirkless. Izuku was born to a couple of people who had some very interesting if not common quirks by public standards. The father could breathe fire and the mother could use a form of telekinesis to pull and push small objects. Some would consider this not to be very impressive, and thus Inko the mother became a housewife, and Carl the father became an office worker in a major shipping company. At first, they were happy to learn that they would have a child, and as the child was born and began to grow, he showed an amazing ability to understand and learn. At age of 1 he could read, talk, and do things that most other kids would have to wait to elementary school to even learn. The father was sure his son was going to have a genius intellect quirk, and the mother did say that it didn't matter to her. To her, Izuku was her precious little boy. As years went by and he formed friends with neighboring kids, Izuku made many friends. One was a young man who was the daughter of his mother's best friend, Bakugo. But this happy beginning took a turn for the worse when it finally came time for Izuku to be examined for his quirk. That is where our story begins. Izuku of course was excited after hearing his friend had an amazing quirk to cause explosions from her sweat. He was so excited that Inko had to use her quirk to keep her son distracted long enough for the doctor to finish the exam by making her son's All Might action figure move around. "Mom, I can't wait, I bet I will have an amazing quirk. I should be able to either have your quirk or Dad's, even both. I can't wait till I find out." Knowing that she a big fan of heroes, her son is told to calm down. "Izuku, you need to calm down, trust me, this exam is going to be over quickly, so you want to be a hero. Like your idol. All Might." Izuku nodded happily as he heard his mother's words. That is when tragedy struck the family. The doctor came in with an X-ray they took off Izuku. He knew this could happen, but it was never an easy or pleasant thing to tell a child or their parent. "Mrs. Midoriya, we have finished the exam, and it says here that both you and your husband have quirks. Mind if I ask where is your husband and what are your quirks?" Inko looked a bit sad. "I have a rather weak telekinesis quirk, and my husband has a rather weak fire-breathing quirk. My husband is at work." Since he felt like he couldn't be a professional hero, he became an office worker, and to help raise Izuku I became a housewife. "Why would that matter, doctor? Why do I get the feeling that you are trying to evade telling us the results of my son's exam?" The doctor began to laugh as he placed the X-ray on the display and turned it on. "Mrs. Midoriya, I was avoiding it, but you are right, no need for such suspense. As you may know, a good way to tell if a person has a quirk or not is by looking at the joints in the patient's foot. We don't know why, but if a person had only fewer joints in their foot, that means that a quirk is present. Sadly, after close examination of your son, it has been determined that he was born without a quirk. As you see in this X-ray. Which is why I asked about you and your husband. I have no idea how could this happen. It should be impossible when both parents possess a quirk, but sadly it is true, little Izuku here is quirkless." That was such a shock to Izuku that he dropped his action figure as his mother pulled it up from the ground. "Mom, even if I don't have a quirk, I can still be a hero, can't I?" Seeing the tears in her son's eyes and the earnest tone in his voice, she hugged him and told him nothing can tell him what he can do, only he was the one to determine what he could be. "Son, you can be anything you want to be." Upon hearing this, his father spent less time with his wife and son, he spent more hours at work, but as his best friend heard he had no quirk, what was a loving friendship became something horrible, and the friend became a bully. Mocking him and hitting him, even burning his clothes using her quirk, Izuku would have to endure as his once friend became his worst bully. The Midoriya family was by no means wealthy. Some people at Carl's office heard his hope that if his son became a professional hero, then the family might be able to earn more money, fame, and even rise in social economic status, but with his son being quirkless, he became darker, colder towards his son. He pretended to be a loving, hard-working father, however the truth was far more sinister. He began to cheat on his wife, blaming her for their son being born quirkless. Typical sexist mentality: if something goes wrong with the kid, it is the mother's fault. It took him 2 years to finally get sick of it, and he lied to his wife, telling her that he wanted to take their son for some father-son bonding, since he didn't get enough time to spend with him due to work. She was happy to see that her husband wanted to spend some time with their son. So at age 6 he and his father went to their supposed picnic. Why supposed? Because the father had other intentions, you see. He drove far away into a city that he didn't even know the name of it, dropped Izuku off, and told him to scram. "You stupid quirkless brat, we are both tired of wasting money and time on a fucking waste of space like you, why don't you get lost?" Izuku was in tears as he heard Carl say, "Dad, what are you saying?" That is when Carl hit him hard, so hard that he couldn't even move afterward due to the pain. "Don't call me dad, I am not your father, you are not my son, you are nothing to me, a dirty Deku that is no better than a leech. Why don't you do me and my wife a favor and die already?" He got in his car before he could hear his son and took off, abandoning his son in an unknown city and leaving him to die. Little did he know, however, that this particular city was not your typical city. It was once called a hidden village long ago, and the people of the city, well, some did have quirks, some did not. This is the city of the secret protectors of Japan, one of the ninja cities that could be found around the world. Izuku was crying in pain, and that got the attention of a woman eating at a ramen stand. Hearing the cries, she got up and went to check where was that coming from. She rushed to find a young boy heavily injured and apparently in a lot of pain. Rushing to the hospital with the child, and she talks to 3 women, Tsunade, Sakura and Shizune, telling them that she found this kid while eating at Ichiraku's. Immediately the 3 women took him to the operations room and started to work to try and save this kid's life. He had broken ribs, internal bleeding, and severe burns. It took all the skills of these 3 to save his life, but sadly, he would have burn marks on his arms and legs. The kid's body was a complete contradiction. With such burns he shouldn't even be alive, and yet he is, with broken ribs that punctured his organs, yet he lives. Tsunade wondered what on earth happened to this kid. They would have to wait for the kid to wake up and recover to even be able to ask him. So they decided to call Ino Yamanaka to look through his memories, and she couldn't help but throw up after seeing them. She tells him that this kid had his quirk stolen, and without his parents knowing, his disgusting son of a bitch father beat him and left him in the city to die, claiming that his mother hated him, but she could tell this was not true. The operation was a success, the kid would live, but he would need a few days to recover. He was placed in the hospital, and therapy would be scheduled for later. So what should we do with this kid? He is not from the city. But decided not to take the kid back to his family. That is when the Hokage and one of his sisters walked in with him. "I heard my sister brought in a strange boy. Can someone please explain?" Shizune told him everything, even what Ino told him she found in his memories. He was not happy about this. So that scumbag of a father would do this to his son? I think we should send a report to Nezu. He would write it up explaining what happened and that someone stole the boy's quirk. So someone is stealing quirks. He knows of a person who tried to steal his abilities, thinking that it was a quirk, the person known as All for One. Talking to Nezu through the computer, telling him what is going on, Nezu thanks him and will have the father arrested for entering a city that only professional heroes can enter. Nezu told them what happened and what her husband has done, and Inko tells Nezu that she wants to go to where her son is. Again, Nezu told her that to be able to legally enter the city where he is, she has to become a professional hero. Naruto looked at the computer. "We will keep the kid to heal, train him and make him ready to be a hero. His quirk was an intelligence quirk, so not much for combat. Without our training, he would never be able to be a proper hero. He will be trained to be a ninja in our city. He is the perfect age to be enrolled in the academy, so don't worry about him. I will also restore his quirk. It shouldn't be that difficult. Sorry to put all this trouble on you, my friend Nezu." Nezu immediately calls for Inko and Mitsuki. They immediately drive over to his office. Hearing that they found her son, Inko was happy to over to where Nezu was to hear all the details. Mitsuki was called for emotional support since she was going to be quite distressed after hearing what happened. Thank you very much for coming, Mrs. Midoriya and Mrs. Bakugo. I just got a call from a friend of mine. His people found Izuku in the city and he was badly injured. One of the people that treated him used a mind-reading quirk and we were told what happened. His father beat him up so badly that he left him to die in a town he had no clue he had no right in entering at all. In the city where Japan's hidden guardians are trained, the ninja, and left him on the street for him to die. He told his son that both of his parents wanted to get rid of him because he is quirkless. The thing is that he is not a professional hero and only pro heroes can enter that city, so we will have him arrested for that. It will not be a light sentence, I can tell you that. He may never get out of prison. As for your son, he is not quirkless, someone stole it and my friend promised to restore it. He however needs a lot of training to be able to pursue his dream of becoming a hero, so he will remain in that city to be trained in their ways. Inko asks that she wants to go to the city and find her son herself to make sure he is alright, and Nezu again reminds her that it is illegal for anyone other than pro heroes to enter the city. If she wants to enter the city, she would have to become a pro hero herself. Her friend told her that they both should become professional heroes and that they can both enter the city, so much later than they expected they enroll in UA to receive proper training. While Izuku was asleep, Naruto used his technique of creation of all things to restore his quirk. As the boy slept he saw that his chakra network began to repair. Surprisingly, due to this happening, his body reacted as if his chakra was flooding his pathways with chakra, so in retrospect, he had a much larger reserve because of it. For the past 2 years, his chakra reserves had slowly increased in amount as the flow of it was sealed due to his quirk being stolen. Naruto was surprised to see that due to this, Izuku had chakra capacity equal to one of the noble clan children, as much as an Inuzuka heir he would guess. Naruto waited for Izuku to wake up. He hated to see children being mistreated, which was one of the reasons why he and Nezu got along so well. This kid's idiot father is lucky if he didn't meet either one of them. All Might and Eraserhead was rescuing 2 children that were kidnapped by Shai Hasekai. They took the blood from both of them to clone should they need replacements. One girl was a girl with white hair and a horn on her head, she had a time quirk. The second girl had a transformation quirk. They barely managed to rescue them, but sadly the leader got away with the blood because his men distracted them long enough for their boss to escape. The girls are rescued and taken to the hospital for possible treatment. Eri and Himiko are both doing fine as Himiko's parents arrive, but since Eri is an orphan, Eraserhead adopts her. Getting a phone call, All Might answers it and finds out it is Nezu. Asking what is wrong, All Might is told what has happened to this boy. Upon hearing the name All For One, he immediately takes off toward the city. He called his mentors while running toward the city, Nana Shimura and Sorahiko Torino. They are both shocked that somehow All For One stole the quirk of a kid and they are glad that it was restored. Since they met Naruto when he saved Nana and helped increase her lifespan so much that she is still active as a hero. They know it was All For One the one that stole the quirk, but unfortunately, he was unconscious. He couldn't exactly tell them what his face looked like. As the 3 arrived, they met Naruto at the gate. If you came to meet the kid so you can take him back with you, that is a no. The kid is staying here. He is going to be trained. I already told Nezu all about it and he agreed. If you have any problems with it, take it up with him. All Might was not happy to hear this. Look, you may say that, but his mother must be going nuts with worry right now. We need to get the kid back to her. Naruto told him, sorry kiddo, no can do, the boy needs to train to be a hero like you. The kid only has an intelligence quirk. If he tries to do so with only that, he will fail. Nana tells him that it is cruel to keep him away from his mother, to which Naruto told her they have computers and they can talk using video so they can remain in contact, but that excuse was not going to work. Considering what Night Eye told me about his destiny, he is the one. You will give him a copy of your quirk, so we are going to train him to be ready. After a few hours of discussion, they agree that Izuku shall stay with them and be properly trained for the next 8 years. Naruto knows that the academy is 7 years. Thanks to his intelligence quirk, he should graduate early and thus give him time to train under several teachers. They decided to meet little Deku to see what he looks like. Walking in, Nana realizes that Deku is her 3rd grandchild, the youngest out of the 3. She hugs him and begins to cry. After she calms down, she saw the burns were being treated. She immediately asked how bad are his burn. Naruto tells not too bad, but sadly it will leave scars on his arms and legs, other than that he is perfectly healthy. Naruto told him his plan of having him train for 8 years. He should be ready by the time they sent him and 2 others when they go take the entrance exam at UA. A few days later, Izuku finally is ready to be discharged. Izuku was wondering where he is and what is going to happen to him after his parents abandoned him. Naruto and Tsunade are quick to mention that they are in the city of Konoha, a secret place that only professional heroes can enter, and that he has nothing to worry about. All his injuries were treated, and it is not true. His mother still loves him very much. It was his father that wanted to do away with him, but he was arrested and he will not be a problem anymore. As to what is going to happen to him, that is entirely up to Izuku. If he still wants to be a hero, he can remain in the city to be trained to be a ninja. The ninja can fight and be heroes even without quirks, but he should also know that his quirk was stolen, so he was never quirkless. To begin with, Naruto explained that he managed to restore his quirk, but it is only an intelligence quirk. So Izuku, if you stay here for the next 8 years, we can train you to be ready to become a hero, and you don't need to worry about training. We have an academy where you will learn everything you need and possibly even make some good friends. So what do you say, Izuku? Want to train with us here? Izuku asked him how strong would he be if he trained. Naruto told him that if he trained hard enough, there is a record of a woman who destroyed an entire mountain with her finger, so yes, he could be an incredibly versatile and powerful hero if he trained. He would be provided with a place to live and of course money for his basic needs. He asked about his mother, and Naruto told him that of course, he can talk with her in his free time through video conferencing. You don't need to worry about it, kid, we would never prevent you from talking with your mom. So how about it? Do you want to train? Izuku didn't wait a second before he said yes, he would train to be a hero. Izuku is given some clothes, and he is told that Naruto will show him around so that he knows his way around the city. He begins his tour of it and laughs when he hears Izuku saying that he expected ninjas to live still in primitive times. Naruto tells him they have to adapt to survive, and thus it is the way of the shinobi, those who endure. He showed him the grocery store, bookstore and academy, which according to Izuku was massive. He was introduced to his teachers and was given a small tour of it to make sure he knows where he needs to go. After everything was done, Naruto heard the sound of a stomach growling. Izuku felt embarrassed but was told it wasn't anything that embarrassing since Naruto was hungry too. He invited him to the most wonderful restaurant in the world, at least in Naruto's opinion, Ichikara Ramen. They were happy to see that they could find seats at the table, and as they placed the order, Naruto began to tell him the history behind the faces carved on the mountain. He was amazed to hear that so many people have become so great and filled him with the hope that once his training was done, he could be as good of a hero as All Might. But Naruto told him why be happy with just being like him, why not try and surpass him? Do you think that is possible? Izuku asked him. Kid, anything is possible as long as you work hard and believe. So it is possible. Only you can tell. Thinking back to my family, I would say, yes, you can become anything you want to be. Naruto and Izuku talked about the many things they know about heroes, but Naruto warned him that appearances can be deceptive. He needs to learn to look beneath the underneath and never take a situation for granted. Naruto and Izuku were done with their meal when the chef simply laughed and said since it was his first meal, it was on the house. The apartment where he would live was on the second floor of a rather strange shop. He couldn't quite make out what was in it, but he knew it was a shop. Naruto showed him the inside of the apartment and told him spare clothes and things he will need are in his closet already. The stove and the fridge are electric, he doesn't have to worry about a fire, and as he gave him the key he told him his first day in the academy was tomorrow. Someone will come to pick him up and take him to the academy and check on him from time to time. When he needs food, one of his wives will bring him breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Naruto did suggest that learning how to cook would be a very useful skill. After that Naruto left and Izuku went to the bedroom. He got into his bed and decided to sleep early since tomorrow was his first day in the academy. Chapter 2. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction only. Other franchises will be included. The very next morning Izuku got up bright and early. He had to prepare for today was the first day at the academy and he was told that as a student he would have access to every book, file, and scroll in the library that was classified genin level or below. His intelligence quirk went through a severe growth since someone had stolen it, and the restoration had in fact improved it so much so that he now had a photographic memory. He could remember anything he reads or sees with picture clarity. The previous night he tested that out with the academy rulebook. For some reason, having been bullied in another school made him want to know the rules that all students must follow, even the rules the teachers and staff must follow, to the point that he knew exactly what to do if a student or anyone from the academy violated the rules. Izuku was not going to be bullied any longer. He would not be anyone's punching bag. This time, with his cold intelligence and sharp mind, he found that in the academy rule book he could formulate a defense against bullying, a defense so strong not even his fellow students would dare to try to go against it. Well, he had a good breakfast and got dressed in some rather nice comfortable clothes. After all, he was supposed to have not only learned about skills but actually used them in practical lessons. It is not all knowledge straight out of a textbook in lectures, and they had to physically learn some of this stuff. This translates to him being ready for when the bully or bullies in class try to use the practical lesson as a chance to either beat him down, mock him, or make themselves look better by sabotaging him. His memories of what he suffered due to what Bakugo did to him couldn't make him expect any better. Much to his shock, Naruto actually spoke the truth. A beautiful woman showed up and to Izuku that she was one of Naruto's wives and she came to take him to his first day at the academy. She had shoulder-length dark blue hair and a figure that most porn stars would pay a fortune to the doctor to at least attempt to get for themselves. Aside from the fact that she was dressed in a very professional manner, Izuku could see that this lady was beautiful but also kind and she made him feel like she had no bad intentions toward him. A very relaxed person to walk towards the academy, but others would fill him with thoughts of him being bullied once again. As they walked through the streets, the lady would give him a few pieces of advice like where to go to get something at a good price, which bakery had the best tasting bread, or even what clothing store would actually let the person buy clothes in payments. He didn't want to interrupt her, but he was familiar with the concept of layaway. She also told him pretty funny stories of her youth and about how she made a few embarrassing mistakes when she was his age, which if anything was a great icebreaker, but it was the fact that she said it in the most sincere tone that made Izuku have a real hard time holding back his laughter. For an instant the time one of her daughters went absolutely so furious that she punched her father so hard that she knocked him out on the same day that he was supposed to be inaugurated as the leader of their city by being named Hokage, all because the teddy bear that she and her brother were fighting over as they each pulled it towards each other got ripped in half. That told Izuku two important details. First, the Hokage was supposed to be the strongest ninja in the nation, and this daughter of hers who she told him was attending the same class as he was, is strong enough to knock him out with a single punch, and second, stay away from any girl that has dark blue hair when she looks like she is not having a good day just for safety's sake alone. Too bad for him he couldn't avoid her or her brother, because it turns out they were his classroom teachers. Her brother by the name of Boruto was the homeroom teacher, and his sister Himawari was the practical skills teacher. So his class had two of the children of the Hokage as their teachers, and they didn't look happy about it at all. In the orientation that the academy did in an auditorium, both he, a blonde man with two whisker marks on his face, and his sister, a dark blue-haired woman with two whisker marks on her face, looked very serious, but clearly, Izuku knew they were not happy about the place where they were told to work in, not happy at all. As each of the students began to introduce themselves, he soon realized that several of the girls and boys in the class were in fact the granddaughters of Naruto, and that made him feel a little lonely, like he was the only outsider in the classroom, living alone. No matter how comfortable is bound to make a person feel a little sad, and the time he got to talk with his mother was little, and only time he could talk was in the weekends, since she too was busy. As the day was ending, he decided to turn on his laptop and talk to his mother, which apparently was only too happy to do. She told him she was going to classes to become a pro hero, and the mother of Bakugo was going with her. The practical lessons were not always fun, and the lectures were nothing that different than what a person saw in a college course, so she asked him what he was studying. Izuku merely laughed and decided to give it to her straight. I am learning history, psychology, strategy, economics, interrogation, espionage, and to fight not only with my mind and skills, but incorporating that by using said skills while learning to fight with an arsenal of deadly weapons. You know, to be a ninja. The first time they talked to set up the video conferencing link was quite touching, and Izuku learned something shocking. His father was now locked up for the rest of his life in Tartarus for entering the city where he now lived without a license. His mother told him once she heard what her husband had done, began to look at what he had been doing in secret. That is when she found out about the many ruined families he harmed, the many women who were used as nothing more than breeding stock, trying to create an immense powerful quirk user. He would seduce these women and then pretend to have affairs with them. When they learned the truth, they were caged in a clandestine lab where they were forced to become pregnant and give birth over and over again. Many times the experiments they did on them and on the unborn children were so horrible that the child would not live long, some died before they were born. It was horrible, malicious, and inhumane, but the one thing that it wasn't was without focus or a goal. Creating that super quirk user, that was something that the scientist who was forced to do his bidding said when asked what was the goal of the lab. Someone wanted to create a person who was essentially a quirk-using super soldier. Izuku contacted some of the men who were responsible for the arrest of the man who he believed was his father to ask them for some details. What he learned was something had he not had his intelligence quirk would have made him lose his mind. The man he called father was not his father at all, but rather he was a stepfather, and Carl was not the leader behind the horrible acts he found out. In fact, he was merely a pawn of someone else. The detective told Izuku that once they began to earnestly question him, he confessed that he had the husband of Inko killed to have his now master steal his quirk and give it to Carl. Carl was a co-worker of Hisashi Midoriya, and he wanted everything Hirashi had. But this one rotten debt ended up making Carl the obedient slave of the man who did him this favor, for if he ever told, Inko and her son would know the truth. But the thing that frightened him so much that he dared not even speak his name or even title was that his master told him if he did, his punishment would be worse than death itself. So the man who he considered his father had his actual father killed, and it is believed that his actual father is dead, but no remains were ever found. Well, today was the first day in class, so there was not much that was taught by either of these teachers, so he was allowed to study on his own in the library. The first things he focused on were chakra control, and a little technique Naruto himself taught him called the shadow clone technique. At the moment he could only make 2, but he hoped that as his control improved, he could increase the number of clones, and they would be invaluable when it came to learning. Whatever one clone learns the moment they receive a severe enough hit, time runs out, or are made to disappear by the person who made them, the memories of everything they experienced and learned would rush back to the person who made the shadow clone, thus he could study at present 3 times faster than normal, and with his quirk, it was much faster than most normal people. In fact, Izuku had to be told that he should come another day by the librarian because they had to close for the day. He actually stayed in the library, studying until the very last minute for several days, avoiding and not talking to any of his classmates. Some people consider him unfriendly, some girls said he was shy. No, in reality the only reason he avoided talking with people is that he knows that at one point he will have to go back to his mother, and when this happens, he will be unable to ever go back to be with any person that becomes his friends. A person needs to be a pro hero to be able to be in the city. It will take him years before he can ever do that once he gets back home. He is thinking that if he falls in love with some girl or girls in the academy or the city he will not get to see them for years. Yes, there is video conferencing, but long-distance video romances died faster than cicadas. He doesn't want to hurt others this much, and no matter how much he studied, there is no way that he will learn enough sealing information or have the talents of Naruto, so arrange seals to allow him to use the flight of the Thunder God. That is a pinnacle achievement that is amazing that his own son managed it, but it took him years to be able to do that. So he is spending every second he can either learning in the library, working out, or training in the forest of death. He did make some rather interesting friends there, who knew that he could figure out how to speak with quite a few of the animals there, and tried to remain as emotionally distant as possible. And sparring, the entire thing was boring to him. Let's face it, Izuku could literally think 6 or 7 steps ahead of his opponent. He knew what the guy would do even before the guy did it. To him every taijutsu strike was practically telegraphed. To just have fun he went fishing with a snake and caught the damn fish with his mouth by swimming. The snake practically challenged him to catch a fish as she could, and that was the most fun she had the first month. Little by little his control got better, and the more he exercised and learned the more chakra he could use. Guess nobody paid attention to the fact that chakra is made up of both mental and physical experience and energy, and by studying and doing what Izuku was doing every day his reserves grew. This means that by the end of the first year, which of course he was at the top of his class, he could now make 3 more shadow clones, which means now that he could now learn and train 6 times faster than most, and this is not counting on his intelligence quirk that was also becoming stronger, and he proficient at using it from all the times he passively used it every single day. They find that the snake who was his friend was actually the daughter of Orochimaru who used a transformation to swim as a snake was shocking as all hell, but the worst part is that she was swimming with him while being bare buck naked, and this lady was by no means a little girl. She could easily get hired to be a professional fashion model. Once she revealed that he didn't make friends because he didn't want his friends to miss him, she slapped him on the head and simply told him that doesn't apply to her. She is much like her father, immortal, and she can just turn into a snake wrap around him, and he can tell his mother and other people that see them that she is his pet snake, and as long as she was with him, she didn't care about it. After the first month of the second year, Izuku literally ran out of things to read in the sections of the library that he was allowed to see, and even using transformation techniques to make himself look like an older ninja in Konoha. He basically read everything in the library. That is what happens when you have so much time to read, since he was not even trying to make any friends, except for the one that clung to him and was not willing to let him be without her. Izuku thought this was a classical example of a clingy girlfriend, not even she dared to deny it. She found him the most interesting boy she ever met, and their late discussions on what he had learned and how he analyzed and reorganized that knowledge into ways no one had thought before was exciting to her. As he was in his apartment eating dinner, he heard a knock at his door. His friend Najini took her snake form and hid beneath his bed to watch the situation. As Izuku opened, it was Naruto, and he, of course, welcomed him inside and offered him a cup of the tea he was drinking. Naruto was happy to accept it as he sat down in one of the chairs by the kitchen table. Sorry I couldn't spend more time with you, Izuku, but being the Hokage and having a family as large as mine does keep me rather busy. I came to you because recently I heard something disturbing from one of my children, who happen to be your teachers. They tell me that you've been distant with your fellow students, and even some think you don't want to be their friends. My daughter even heard some girls were quite sad that you didn't want to be their friend. So I came to ask you, why are you trying to avoid being sociable with your classmates? Izuku looked at Naruto and couldn't keep this hidden from him. He explained that one day he would have to leave, and he would not be able to return until he was a pro hero. If that is the case, he wouldn't be able to see or help his friends in years, which was not fair, so to avoid hurting them more later, he avoided getting attached to people who could become his friends. Naruto couldn't believe that someone with such a powerful intelligence quirk would make such a boneheaded mistake. Izuku, we are the protectors of the world, of an entire nation at the very least. Do you think that can be done by people who never leave their hidden city? Our ninjas leave on missions all the time. Just because the newspapers and news programs don't report it like they do what pro heroes do, doesn't mean our ninjas are sitting around doing nothing. He took a sip of his tea and smiled at him. Izuku, after you graduate from the academy you will be registered as a ninja. You would have the same rights and privileges, not to mention responsibilities as any other ninja of your rank. You can return back here anytime you want when you are a ninja. This city is your city. This apartment is your home, so there is no need to keep your distance from your classmates or anyone else. You should make friends. Get to know people and learn some social skills. A ninja needs to do their job. Believe it. Izuku couldn't believe how dumb he had been, but on the upside, he did manage to finish all his reading for every year in the academy, and more, so now he had a lot more time to talk with his classmates, make friends, and possibly get to know some of these people that were sad that he had spent an entire year avoiding them. Yes, you are right, Lord Hokage, I shall do that. I shall make an effort to be more sociable, and even be more friendly to my classmates. Thanks to what I read so far, I might even be able to help them in their studies. Naruto finished his cup and placed it on the table as he got up from his chair. That is good to hear, Izuku. As Hokage, one thing that makes me happy is to know that the people in my city are happy. As for making friends, it's time to make up for a lost time. As for your friend, I can tell she is glaring at me from under your bed. A young lady I know plenty about snakes. Manda's own daughter once tried to have me as a snack when I was a genin. Next time stop pretending like that and instead drink tea with us. I would have loved to hear what your opinion was on the discussion. Be sure to send my greetings to my old friend Orochimaru. As Naruto left, Najimi finally came out from under the bed and took her human form. As she sat down on a chair and served herself some tea, Dad told me I wouldn't be able to trick the Hokage. It seems my dad was right. He knew I was watching the two of you talk the entire time. Well, I hate the fact that these girls will try to take my boyfriend. The Hokage is right that you do need to improve your social skills, and that is not something that you can learn from a book. Izuku knows that they both mean well, but deep down that whole distancing thing was also because secretly he was afraid that if he got close to people, if he let down his defenses, it would end up like what happened between him and Bakugo. One moment she is his best friend and having fun together, and later she is calling him names, saying he is useless and beating him up, while his little gang laughs at him. If people knew this, they would understand that this was normal, and what they expect is strange, for someone who was ridiculed and bullied to suddenly be open and allow people to get past his defenses. I know that you and he means well, Najini, but I can't help it. I never had many great friends growing up, and those that did become my friends once my family thought I was quirkless, they turned on me and became my bullies and tormentors. I just don't want to go through that while I am in the academy. Some would say I live while holding on to my sword, keeping everyone at a distance, but when your dearest friend treats you like garbage, how else can they expect me to react? The genie never expected him to say something like this, or that his childhood was that horrible, but it made more sense. Don't you worry, Izuku, you know you have a friend in me, so if there is anything you want to talk about or need help with, you can talk with me. After all, I've been around for quite a long time. Believe it or not, I am older than your teacher Boruto, her Himawari. Izuku was quick to tell her she didn't look like it, to which her only comment was that snakes shed their skin, why would she be any different? Which made both of them laugh as they began to talk, and Izuku finally got to speak about the many hurt feelings and negative things he went through. Najimi was supportive, and together they made sense of what he was confused about. In the end, he felt like a massive weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Much to the shock and delight of his classmates, the following class day Izuku was open, friendly, and helpful. Some say he did a 180, and some joke that he finally woke up on the right side of his bed. An Izuku clan member even joked that maybe he was more friendly and outgoing because he finally got laid. Some found the comment insulting, but Izuku only laughed and told him in a matter of speaking he laid his old painful memories to rest. From that day forward he was more open with his classmates and would often give them tips when he saw them having trouble. They asked him how in the world did he know so much, to which he simply responded that he read every book in the library genin section and the ones for the public. One of the girls said it was impossible, to which he smiled and told her the secret was with just 2 words: shadow clones. The fact is that soon after the second year began to improve in skill, and the only thing that the teachers could say is that Izuku had been tutoring them. In fact, some of them returned the favor by helping him improve his physical martial arts skills. They taught him fighting styles only known to their families as a way to thank him for helping them. Soon enough the boy who avoided making friends was the friend of his entire class. The only problem he had was that he had a few of them actually stalk him and follow him around, even when he went home or ate at his favorite restaurant at Chiraku. The one thing that the school never knew was that Izuku was not living alone. A young woman stayed with him in his apartment. Most people thought that she was there to take care of him, no matter how talented he was still a child. Najini was often seen buying groceries and taking care of the apartment. She always had a warm meal for Izuku by the time he returned from the academy. The fact is that some of the girls actually hated her because she acted more like his wife rather than a caretaker. She even washed his clothes and ironed and folded them, changed the sheets and cleaned the place like she was a dutiful housewife. Orochimaru in his search for immortality discovered a very special kind of blood that would cause a person to be able to accept any organ and any genetic modification without negative consequences. Orochimaru never had a wife, so the only way for him to have his children was for him to create them, and so using his research he did. He made a boy and a girl, but the girl was also an experiment. He used his own blood which was infused already with the qualities of the blood type he found, and the blood of Hinata, Tsunade, Naruto, and finally Sasuke. They all fought several times, and after coming back and becoming allies with Konoha, it was rather easy for him to get them to volunteer and give them blood samples. This is how Najini was born, much like he found out later with his own immortal body, and using a white zetsu to make his children. He had found that adding the bloodlines of other clans caused them to mix in very surprising and sometimes extremely beneficial ways. But Najini was the only one that had all the previously mentioned bloodlines included for his son. He only used his own. The changes were alarming as she first activated her eyes. It was a Rinnegan at first, but spinning Tomo began to appear in her eyes till they formed the eternal Magenkyo Sharingan pattern, and last but not least the color of the eyes turned into a pale purple. It seems her eyes had the abilities of the Rinnegan, Byakugan, and Sharingan all in one, which made her possibly the most coveted Taijutsu wielder in the world, which caused her father great concern. This is why Najini was never known by people. Orochimaru knew that others would try to harm her to either use her as breeding stock or steal her eyes, but that changes one day when she first met a young boy named Izuku, who was training in the forest that she called her home. She was told to remain in snake form to hide from others, but seeing this boy caused her to feel something she never felt before. It was something mystical, something that was often called love at first sight. As another day was ending, he decided to turn on his laptop and talk to his mother. His mother tells her son that she and Bakugo's mother are doing great and even managed to be in 1A, and their teacher is Eraserhead. She has been working with her classmates and has gained a lot of friends. Izuku explained to her that he was doing great in his lessons and made a rather interesting friend who has been helping him become better at the practical lessons. The theory section of his class has been keeping him rather busy since he already knows all the material. The teacher has been having him tutor his classmates when they do group study. His practical teacher has been telling him that she plans to get him to begin to study chakra manipulation since he already mastered the basics. He has been using a technique that basically has allowed him to read and learn many things at an amazing rate since it makes copies of himself, and this allows him to learn everything the copies learn. Honestly mom, I read every book, scroll, and magazine that I have access to in the library, so if possible, could you send me some reading materials, forging weapons, or how to make weapons, any technical textbook you can send my way, cause I literally have nothing to read. She began to laugh and told him if he was so desperate for some reading materials, she might send him some of her old romance novels. You know what, my friend Najini helped me realize that my bully was trying to discourage me from being a hero because she wanted me to be safe, because she had a crush on me, made me feel torment and humiliation, because she loved me so much that she wanted for me to live. Ironic, isn't it? As Inko couldn't help but chuckle and told her son that had he told her about it, she could have told him that this was happening because it was obvious to her that Bakugo was merely trying to keep the boy who she had a crush on safe, as she said that Izuku said good night and that they will talk again when he has some free time, as he closed his laptop and ended the communication. Chapter 3. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction only. Other franchises will be included. It was Izuku's third year in the academy, and thanks to him learning everything in the library, and even some stuff that was beyond what he should have access to, which actually didn't go as unnoticed as he thought, Naruto knew and found it very impressive use of the transformation technique. He used that too every time he wanted to buy any supplies he needed back when he was a genin. It was a nice thing to see another generation using that technique in everyday life. His mother was promptly done an internship and was accepted into that agency. Izuku pretty much attributed the whole thing to Bakugo's mom being a model, so they interned with the snake hero of all things. When he saw his mother wearing those clothes in some of those ads in a fashion magazine, he honestly thought that he should remain within the hidden city and never ever move. He was that embarrassed to see his mother of all people modeling for ads for Victoria's Secret. It sure as hell didn't help that she went under the name of Telekinesis Hero, and the mother to his childhood bully went under the name Explosion Queen, even though how people stand that attitude of hers is something not even Inko could figure out. To say her manner of speech was so horrible that it made sailors blush is an understatement. At least Izuku knew exactly where Bakugo got that foul language habit from. He, much like other classmates from the academy, was allowed to go on missions of E and D rank to prepare them for the outside world. Having passed most of his exams to earn the right to go on missions and being given his temporary headband in the office of the Hokage, he was allowed to go on missions with other teams of new graduates who called him the kid in the team to tease him. What missions did he do? Why do the traditional E and D ranks still have to do 50 of those? And Izuku by the end of this 20th one wanted to murder that demonic creature that pretended to be a cat. He of course couldn't because the said monstrosity was the beloved pet of one of the wives of the Hokage, and if the cat was bad, she was much worse if someone pissed her off. She was also the person whom Naruto talked about destroying a mountain with a finger flick. Her name was Sakura. Get me the fuck away from her, Haruno Uzumaki. She was the best doctor, surgeon, and medical researcher in the country. Well, when she is calm, she is a kind, caring, and quite gentle person, but if someone manages to piss her off, she becomes the exact opposite of that, and some of the things she hates the most are either people trying to hurt her pet or making fun of her daughters. Yes, daughters, she had plenty, and Izuku met all of them. It didn't help matters that one of them was the leader of the team he was working with, and she often made comments like that he is so adorable she could just eat him up. This was his life, doing D-rank missions and still going through the academy, being the unofficial tutor of his classmates. In a word, it sort of made the only fun parts being the practical skill lessons, because he already knew everything in the theory. Every single day, and the only 2 days that he didn't do that, well, that is when he had to take care of everything else, so he had very little time for himself. While other students were off trying to have fun or falling in love, he just wanted some time at the end of the week to actually talk with his mother. He honestly didn't think he would ever find a girl that would want to date him, considering he often felt like such a colossal nerd. It made him think he was rather unattractive to most of the girls in his class. He, of course, was clueless that many of the comments that embarrassed him were in fact these girls attempting to flirt with him. He might not consider himself a catch, but some of the girls in the academy actually did. One of his classmates asked him why would he take harder missions than the other classmates when a few easy E ranks could in fact earn him just as much as a D rank without all the stress. Look, E rank missions pay so little that it might as well be charity. Personally, I rather have some money saved for when the brown stuff hits the fan, not if, but when, because it will, and it is only a matter of time. He looked at the confused look on the faces of his classmates when he realized that he needed a more in-depth explanation. We are training to be ninjas, and as ninjas, we will be putting our lives at peril every mission we go. There is no guarantee that we will make it back, but there is no guarantee that we will not be, say, hospitalized for several months or years, which means we won't earn any money, so excuse me if I rather have a little nest egg for in case of emergencies. One of the girls simply said as sort of a safety net or insurance. He had to admit that she understood the idea, so I take D-rank missions to make enough so I can put some of it into that nest egg. You want easy, go right ahead, but when I do missions, I choose the ones that will help me prepare when things go from bad to worse. As his classmates understood what he was saying, one asked him why not ask his parents to help him if he is low on money or use the money he gets from his allowance. That was it, the one comment that simply upset him. My mother is in another city and cannot enter this one till she becomes a pro hero. As for my dad, he was killed by the man I later found out was my stepfather, so my only relative is my mom, and the only way I will ever get to spend any time with her is that she passes the pro hero exam and gets a bloody license, so no chance of asking her for help or ask about my non-existing allowance. I got to take care of things by myself. So that is why I take D ranks. I hope this is the last time we have this conversation. His classmates had no clue that his life was harsher than they could ever imagine, so much so that immediately after the day in the academy ended they walked into their homes, hugged their mother, and thanked their parents for being there for them. The mothers of his classmates were happy to see their children appreciate them like this, and the father felt a sense of relief when their children realized that life was never as easy as they think it is. A good cold dose of reality, and many discipline problems were gone, and the lives in their homes had improved immensely. As the days went by, some of his classmates asked Izuku that instead of eating a meal all alone, why doesn't he come with them back home so they can share a meal with him. This way he wouldn't have to eat alone and he could share some pleasant company, not to mention that some of the girls wanted to introduce Izuku to their parents. Izuku before didn't have any friends thanks to the constant bullying by Bakugo and her gang, but he was not going to pass up a chance to make some now, especially since he still remembered that once he graduates, no matter where he ends up, he will always be a ninja of the city, so he can return whenever he wants regardless of distance. In truth, some of the mothers wanted to meet with the guy who actually made their children learn to appreciate their homes and what their parents did, not to mention, they also wanted to meet with him because their daughters would also mention how he helped them understand things and how he tutored them. In truth, the girls in the class agreed that they would take a turn in inviting him over to their home, and an unofficial schedule was decided by the girls in Izuku's class. As it turns out, he was invited to eat dinner in the home of the head of the Yamanaka clan, which for generations had been in service to Konoha as members of the Censor Corporation, but also had kept a business of growing and selling flowers. Izuku noticed that several pots were empty, and clearly, they needed to be washed, and from the potting soil and bag of seeds near them, they were going to plant these flower seeds. Izuku actually arrived early, so he did the only thing he could. He rolled up his sleeves, grabbed a pair of gloves that were nearby, and began to clean and get these seeds planted. He found something that made him think that was going to be used as a fertilizer, and after all he read about it, decided to take that and mix it with other things to make it much easier for plants to take. He was placing the last pot on the drip irrigation when he heard a woman laugh. "Well, I didn't expect this, thank you for helping, young man. You see, I have been busy trying to prepare a meal for a classmate of my daughter's who apparently lives by himself, but my daughter never told me what he likes to eat, so that was causing me sort of a problem to think what I should cook." Izuku simply smiled as he took off the gloves and placed them back where he got them. "I wouldn't worry too much, I happen to be Ino's classmate. I happen to read a few books about gardening from the city library, and since I got here early, decided to do something useful." As Izuku helped her, she asked him many questions that most would consider rather embarrassing, but he knew that she was only doing this to get to know the friend of her little girl. As he knew this, and knew if she really wanted to she could probably read his mind, he was honest and open about his answers. The work she was doing in her garden was finished faster than she expected. "I was only doing the planting while I waited for my desserts to finish baking, and since I got the memories from my clone, I think it is high time we both wash our hands, and maybe you can help me set the table to be ready when Naruto and Rinoa finally make it home and we can have a nice dinner." Izuku had no reason not to help her, so he only asked her what she wanted to do. He took care of all the heavy lifting and began to place things as soon as she told him what she wanted to be done and where to find the plates, glasses, and utensils that would be needed for the dinner. You might not know this, but Naruto is actually married to over 20 women, so we came up with this little arrangement. We each get to spend one day with our husband, we each get one day with him, and on that day that person keeps Naruto all to herself, which includes having a meal with him and other fun stuff. That is where the idea my daughter had of telling us that she and 4 of her friends wanted to do what we do and have you come to the home of each girl and enjoy a home-cooked meal. The mothers of these girls agreed only if we get to know the guy who our daughters were so interested in, which is strange because all the girls that wanted to do it are in fact the daughters of the same man, Naruto. That is when he realized that Izuku had somehow become friends with the daughters of Naruto, which made him worry. It almost made him think that this was all set up by Naruto to get his daughters to date someone, or he would if he was paranoid about how this life had turned out. "Well, my mom is currently doing internships with her hero agency, and I got 4 more years before I even can get back to the city where I was born, so I am grateful that you are willing to open your home to me and give me a chance to eat a meal with you and your daughter." She was rather happy to hear that. Deep down Izuku was a nice guy. "You know, back in my youth I used to hate and bully Naruto. In fact, I was trying to get his best friend to fall for me and even went as far as to get in fights with my childhood friend who also was after the same guy, but thanks to Naruto, we both figured out to sort our priorities. He was so sweet and supportive that I and my friend ended up falling for Naruto instead, and that is how we both ended up marrying him." She sat down on one of the chairs and looked at him. "Since we are going to have to wait for some time, why don't I tell you what the results of all those exams we did on you showed us? We actually found out the reason why your chakra capacity is as large as yours. After our husband restored your original quirk, it seems the absence of your quirk caused your body to awaken a long-forgotten bloodline, and this just happens to be the Hagoromo clan bloodline. I trust that since you read all the books in the library you know who the person was that started this clan." Izuku simply looked at the blonde lady and said the Sage of the Six Paths. He was in a lot of the history books, and 2 of the founders of Konoha were in fact related to him, so it wouldn't be that strange for him to be in the history books of Konoha, since back when the place was still just a village. Correct, and you Izuku having that bloodline also means you have their bloodline trait, which also means that originally your family should have been born here, but somehow your bloodline and your clan found themselves living outside of our city. To make matters even worse, your clan only has currently 1 member, so I am sorry to tell you, but chances are that you will be entered into the Korra or the Clan Omii Restoration Act. Which means that you will have to marry multiple girls to have as many kids as possible to restore the population of your clan. Which is probably why my daughter Rino was so much in favor of doing this. Just as she finished saying this, she heard someone open the door to the dining room, and sure enough, there was Naruto and Rinoa, or as Izuku called her by her nickname, Ino, which is sort of odd since that was also her mother's name. Well, looks like you came early and helped my mom, thanks Izuku, wasn't that nice of him to do that, daddy? Naruto could be heard laughing as he also entered the dining room. As he saw Izuku, he merely looked at his wife who was smiling. Well, today was a long and busy day, and I gather that your mom also had him do some work in her flower garden, so I imagine Izuku is as hungry as I am. Why don't you let him and I start eating dinner and we can talk while we eat? The last thing we want is for the food your mother prepared to get cold. As soon as they sat down and they each began to serve themselves some of the food that she had prepared, some soup, a large pot of what seemed to be ramen, some various braised, baked, or barbecued meat dishes that involved everything from fish to poultry, some salad that had different fruits, and a rather large pie for dessert. In a jug near the center of the label, Izuku could swear it was something he only heard as rumors of being served in a restaurant, but sure enough, it was pink lemonade. As soon as he tasted the lemonade, he realized that it was normal lemonade that had been mixed with cranberry juice, which gave it a very distinctive flavor. As soon as Izuku was ready to eat, he said a small prayer to give thanks for the meal, which caught everyone present by surprise. They didn't even think that Izuku was that religious. They saw him eat the food, and it was clear to their daughter and her mother that he actually liked the taste of the soup, but for some odd reason, he was not touching the ramen, probably because they noticed that Naruto was serving himself a rather large bowl of it, so more than likely Izuku was waiting for Naruto to finish serving himself before he even considers getting any of the ramen for himself. He is only the Hokage, but also the man who is the father to the friend whose family he is visiting, so he needed to be polite and let the man of the house eat his favorite food. Granted, Izuku was wondering how did this ramen compare to the stuff he could buy at Ichiraku. How did he learn of that place? One of his teachers told him that it was essentially the favorite place to eat for both his father and mother. Just do him a favor and never, ever ask who the Queen of Gluttony is. As he expressed his interest in how they learned the recipe, it turns out that the daughter of the owner of Ichiraku actually is one of the wives of Naruto, and she taught the other women who were married to Naruto the recipe, something about wanting others to know how to cook Naruto's favorite food. She even laughed at Hinata, the person who couldn't even say Naruto's name without fainting cause she was that shy, actually beat Naruto in an eating contest. I still can't believe she ate more than any of the other people participating in that ramen eating contest. I don't think either Boruto or Himawari will ever outlive the embarrassment of the title their mother got. The witch Izuku just blurted out that she was probably the same person his teacher mentioned, and to never mention the Queen of Gluttony. Somehow, even as he is an adult, it seems he is still embarrassed over that one moment in his life. Upon hearing this, Naruto began to laugh, as he remembered how Boruto reacted when he was told who the legendary Queen of Gluttony was, and to his son's shock, he was also told why. Hinata ate 46 bowls of ramen in less than 10 minutes. Naruto confessed that he ate only 30, and both he and his team leader were shocked to see how many bowls Hinata managed to polish off. I know, I can't forget that even if I tried, she ate more bowls than anyone in the village in a single sitting. That is saying something when one of the people she beat was a member of my team, Choji, and let me tell you that guy can eat. I don't remember any time during the time he studied at the academy when he wasn't either eating something or planning to eat something. He always walked around eating one bag of potato chips after another. Izuku confessed that since he knows most of the theory by heart, he finds most of the theory lessons to be quite boring. In fact, if he didn't do the tutoring to help his fellow classmates, more than likely he would have fallen asleep. At the end of the meal, Izuku was walking along the streets back to his apartment, and he noticed that the streets are awfully empty. The path to his apartment building almost had an eerie silence to it, like someone was getting ready to launch an ambush. He, of course, was wrong. There was no ambush at all. It was simply so late into the evening that most people were either at work or asleep, but something made him always wonder where an attack would come from. The look beneath the underneath of every situation, some would call that being paranoid, he called it being prepared. As he walked into his apartment, he was met by the sight of the clones who had in fact cleaned the place up rather nicely. All was squeaky clean, except for the 4 men who were unconscious and tied up. One of the clones dispelled and immediately he saw the memories. They were sure as hell didn't expect an academy student living on his own to have learned the shadow clone technique so well that he hid half a dozen of them in the apartment, pretending to be ordinary items in the place. Izuku had taken the habit of leaving half a dozen shadow clones to either practice or master any technique or skill he obtained while he was going about his day. For combat skills and techniques, they sneaked into the forest nearby, which had plenty of beasts that would attack them, true, but it was also the favorite place for some rather vicious gang of crooks to use as their hiding place. To say that those crooks were dealt with extreme prejudice was easy to see once they delivered the bodies to the Anbu, which sadly for some other ninja, these crooks had quite a nice bounty on them. The next day he did exactly the same thing, left half a dozen shadow clones, and left towards the academy, feeling like having something to eat before he got there. He stopped at Ichiraku for something for breakfast, considering how much money his clones made for him. This was something he could do and give himself a nice little treat. It is true Ichiraku has excellent noodle dishes, and their sushi was excellent, but they also had many more items on their menu, even a meal menu for every meal of the day. As he walked into the place he smiled as he saw the owner of the place already cooking someone's meal, and his daughter was still taking care of taking all the orders and even taking it to the tables by herself, which means she had amazing stamina, strength, and agility to be able to do so much by herself. Hey, I will have the omelette special, feel like splurging a little bit, so add a glass of juice to that. I will eat it right here, so there is no need for you to worry about getting me a seat at one of the tables, not that there is any available, it is this early, and the place is this full already, well that is always impressive. AM laughed as she handed a plate of food over to the person that was seating a few seats away from Izuku. We have been in the restaurant business for several generations, we have learned to be good at what we do, but we also know there is always room for improvement, speaking of which, mind taste testing a new omelette recipe I am trying to come up with. I will give you that omelette for free, so get two for the price of one, nice deal don't you think so? As he waited he saw people eat their food and see their smiles, it was easy to see why this place was this popular, people seemed to really enjoy their food. As he waited he could swear that some of the guys were in fact interested in the friendly waitress, but for some strange reason she never lets anyone other than Izuku test the recipe she came up with, mainly because he promised her he would tell her nothing but the truth, so if a recipe sucks, he would tell her and why. His order was served and he immediately tasted one that AM was trying or inventing. He always knew by the fact that there was always a tell on the plate, a garnish of some kind. As he took a first bite, he realized what she was trying to do. It tasted a lot sweeter and creamier than normal omelets. It seems she used sugar, some kind of syrup and cream, which made the dish rather tasty. But Izuku figured this dish was more than likely going to be liked by people who have a sweet tooth. AM asked him for his opinion. Well, the sugar sort of clashes with the pancake syrup, but in a way that prevents it from being too sweet. The cream made it easier to chew, moist and almost fluffy. People who are into sweets are really going to love eating this. Chapter 4. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction only. Other franchises will be included. As Izuku entered the classroom he was greeted by his fellow classmates. He sat down on his seat and waited for his teacher to arrive. As he waited, a few girls in his class were apparently having trouble remembering something from the previous history lesson, so he began to do a review on that history class, and as he was finishing and the other classmates were taking notes, he had to go back to his seat, only to see Boruto looking at what he wrote on the blackboard and nod his head. Well, I was planning to go over the previous lesson on the Second Shinobi War and the way that the Hokage dealt with the invasion of the territory of Konoha, but it seems someone already did that for me, thanks Izuku. Now I can move on to the Third Shinobi War. You might not realize this, but the war one I'm going to discuss caused a lot of changes in our world. Boruto began to write the new material on the blackboard as he erased the stuff Izuku wrote to make space, and some of the girls were not happy since they didn't manage to write down the notes he wrote to help them remember. To be more specific, the Sarada Uzumaki, since she is one of the daughters of Naruto, he simply whispered in her ear to hand her notebook over, which she did. Izuku paid attention to his class while he wrote his own class notes and also wrote the notes for the study guide he wrote on the blackboard in Sarada's notebook, plus the notes for the current lesson. It was not difficult for him to multitask since he got pretty good at thinking multiple things at the same time. Thanks to his working so diligently and his mastery of the shadow clone technique, he could make many more shadow clones, but he rather leaves half a dozen so that the clones have enough chakra to practice themselves. As the class switched to going over the political and economic ramifications of what ninjas do, he slipped back Sarada her notebook without anyone being able to notice, but it shouldn't have been that hard since she was actually blushing for a few seconds after she finally got it back. The rest of the classes were stuff Izuku already knew, but like always he dedicated some time to help her as they went through the practical skills lessons. However, his teacher decided, since the lessons were not challenging enough for him, she used some of the seals her own grandfather had developed to make things a whole lot harder on Izuku. Mainly she used gravity seals that increase the effects of gravity on a person. This time increasing the weight of a person so much that Izuku had to use constant chakra to be able to complete his lessons. It felt like he was walking around with a mountain on his back, but never once did he complain about things being challenging. In fact, he loved the feeling of success after facing a worthy challenge. He realized that he very much needed to study more about sealing, but sadly there isn't much in the city library about seal theory for some strange reason. When he asked his teacher, she laughed and told him that most of the things he wanted to read are within the Uzumaki clan's private library, but she would make him a deal. If he could hit her even once under the seal, she would allow him to borrow a single book per day, not to worry about losing or keeping it longer than that. The anti-theft seals on the books would automatically summon them back to the bookshelf after 20 hours. And it would do automatically should a person try to destroy the books. I got to say, sealing sounds like an absolute blast, so you got yourself a deal, but just as a fair warning, I ain't holding back, so if you feel any pain because of this, don't hold it against me. She laughed, thinking that was nearly impossible. She was a chunin, and Izuku was not even a genin, so the chances for him touching her were nearly impossible, but under that seal, it was practically begging for a serving of humble pie. The minute the fight began as a sparring match, he ran towards her until he felt like his bones were creaking under the pressure, but sure enough, he used a feint to trick her into dodging exactly where Izuku wanted, and sure enough, he did a roundhouse kick that sent her flying and crashing into a tree. She was breathing pretty hard as she felt like some of her ribs cracked from the sheer strength of his attack. Looks like you won our little bet, Izuku. After today's class day ends, you will come with me to the Uzumaki private library, and I will let you borrow one book about sealing. I suggest getting one from the general knowledge section and learn some theory before you attempt to start learning how to write seals, the basics of the basics, and take it from there. The Uzumaki compound was as massive as a small palace, but considering how many wives the Hokage had, it did make sense that his home would be this impressive in size. It had dozens if not nearly 100 rooms. The library dwarfed the city library, and each bookshelf had intricate carvings on each of the shelves where the books were. It was truly a masterpiece of both construction and probably on engraving all those seals. They looked almost artistic designs, but Izuku knew better than to simply attribute it to simple aesthetics. He took one book as promised, and he told his teacher that he would return it to her brother the following day. And wait to read this. Honestly, I am going to have a hard time walking home, but I am looking forward to reading this. I finished the books and scrolls in the city library, so I am loving the chance to read something new. Imawari began to laugh and told him that the library had also been one of her favorite places while she attended the academy, but how did he manage to read so much, to which he simply laughed and said shadow clones can do a lot more than just distract or take hits for a person. They can help accelerate a person's learning. Anything the shadow clone learns the original does also, which is why it is shocking that none of the previous Kage ever used them to get their paperwork done. That is when somewhere in the Pure Land several of those very same Kage began to shake their heads in absolute shame upon hearing the words from Izuku, saying that they could have avoided so many problems with their wives or with their kids had then known the shadow clones could do that. Minato was heard saying that maybe he could have fought against the country that invaded his wife's home village if he had mastered the shadow clone to that extent. The witch Kushina simply told him that not ever the second Hokage knew so much about the shadow clones, and he was the one that created the technique in the first place, not to blame himself, and she knew that the only reason she was sent to Konoha was to keep the other villages from killing her and taking the Kyuubi from her, since when the attack happened was when she first received the Kyuubi from Mito Uzumaki. The fools never understood that the real might and fortune of the Uzumaki village were not having the strongest tailed beast, but the knowledge the village developed over centuries of study, research, and practice. In essence, what Mito did was create a way to essentially make copies of every single book in her village, and she had them all placed and kept secure within her home in Konoha, which as time went by became the Uzumaki compound. Izuku was happy to have a new place to get books to read, stuff that he had not read before. This made him so happy that it felt like he was skipping from the sheer joy of it, as he remembered that he needed to go and have dinner with another family of one of his friends, this time Sakura's family. As he walked towards that house, he began to wonder why did most of her family have bubblegum pink hair. It is unusual for people to be born with pink hair, but as he got closer to the family home, he thought that he better not ask, because he might offend them, and because this is the family that once had a lady that destroyed a mountain with a flick of her finger. Which was scary. In any other part of the world, the food that Izuku saw was something that people would eat for Thanksgiving dinner: stuffed turkey, pumpkin pie, bread rolls, cranberry sauce, and all the trimmings. How the hell she got all this in Japan was something that Izuku could not figure out. This stuff would have cost a lot of money if it was bought in a Japanese grocery store, but somehow she had everything he would expect from an American Thanksgiving dinner. This made him even more self-conscious since he didn't bring anything with him to contribute to the meal. Well, he did buy a 6-pack of his favorite soda, but 6 cans of soda are hardly enough for Sakura, her daughter, and more than likely Naruto was going to show up yet again since he is married to Sakura. The people were sort of shocked when they realized that Izuku's favorite drink was Fanta of all things. Why would he like this stuff? Izuku simply said that it was the only stuff left for him to buy in the school vending machine after his classmates took everything else, and that was the only brand left in the machine. Izuku sat down on his chair and began to eat his food, while the family asked him how exactly did he come to be in Konoha. Apparently Naruto didn't tell all his wives about this information. They heard from Naruto how he found himself the city, and they were both shocked and furious about how he was treated by the man who Izuku always thought of as his father. But the most shocking thing is that he should have been registered in Konoha since the moment he was born. Being recognized as a member of the clan named after the Sage of Six Paths means he actually was never an outsider, but a returning citizen. Well, since you are a member of that clan, and that clan is cousins of the Senju, I find myself needing to teach you some things that the Senju clan head once taught me. I shall teach you both how to use the strength of 100 and the 8 gates. Having mastered both, I can easily teach you, and thus your training shall begin after your class day at the academy ends. Naruto told her that Izuku might need some time for his own personal needs, even to relax or take care of some materials assigned by his teachers, to which Sakura sneered and said that he can take care of that using shadow clones. No excuses, his training shall start as soon as possible. Husband, you know of the threat that is coming towards us. The slugs told me of what they have sensed in the ether. Your toads more than likely told you the same. We have to make sure the chosen one is prepared to meet his challenges. As much as you wish to spare him the pain and suffering, we must do this, or else this world is doomed to a fate worse than death, and you know it. Naruto hated to hear this, but he knew that his wife spoke the truth, so he offered to help Naruto by teaching him all the seals that his family had developed. Hopefully knowing the techniques and seals that his father developed would be enough to give him an edge against such an overwhelming threat. They spent the dinner talking about things they liked, and Sakura talked about holding grudges and how harmful it was that his childhood friend might have done that to protect him, but did so in the wrong way. But do not allow his anger or hate pollute his mind and make him hold a grudge or thirst for revenge against her. Each one of the families that he had gone to eat a meal with had offered him nothing more than some wise advice and to train him in some manner or form, to which Izuku was grateful. They slowly began to heal the deep wounds that have been formed in his mind and heart, which made him feel better and calmer. In the city where Izuku was born, Inko and her friend and Mitsuki had graduated from UA and were doing their residency with the agency owned and operated by the one hero that was called the Snake Hero, Uwabami, and in truth they did a lot of model jobs, that is true, but it is understood that they did so to fund their agency and to provide themselves with a sustainable income. But nevertheless they did do hero work, which consisted of fighting and capturing criminals that used their quirks in ways that broke the law. Izuku's mother was working so hard to do well in her residency that her quirk evolved into allowing her to fly and be able to control objects 10 times her own size. Mitsuki, using the features of her suit, eventually had a breakthrough and developed a variant version of her own daughter's quirk, except that is was more volatile and burned brighter than anything her daughter had been able to do. But then again, she hasn't done much training to master her quirk since she was depressed most of the times, since she knew nothing about what happened to Izuku. Mitsuki never told her daughter where Izuku was or what happened because she knew her impulsive daughter would run and blast her way through anything that got in her way, but she would make it into the city and find Izuku if she knew. Regardless of how young she was, if a person entered the city without being at least a professional hero, meaning without a license to prove that the sentence for doing this was no better than a life sentence, so to prevent this from happening, she told nothing to Kitsuki, but sadly she was so depressed that she spent very little time training her quirk. Mitsuki knew that this was a hard thing to do to her daughter, but she knew that if she did tell her, she could end up doing something that could ruin her life, so she had to wait, only telling her that Izuku was safe, healthy and doing fine, that she had nothing to worry about him, but he was far away and he was doing something to help him one day achieve his dream. Mom, that is impossible. That fucking idiot has no quirk. A person without a quirk is no better than a guy committing fucking suicide. Are you fucking kidding me? What can a quirkless fucking idiot like him do to become a hero? I ain't believing any of that shit till I fucking see it myself. As soon as she said this, her mother simply told her if she trains hard enough and proved that she has gotten very good at using her quirk, she would arrange for her to see Izuku again, since they were planning to go and visit him a month after they got their license, and they arranged permission for them all to enter the city where Izuku is living and training in. You might not be training, but you better believe that Izuku is not wasting his time. You might not be training and learning to be tough, but he isn't sure as hell not fucking wasting his time. If you don't move your ass, you are going to be the weakling when once you meet him, so you better not fucking come crying to me when it does. She immediately asked him what the hell could he be training to be without a fucking quirk, to which she finally had enough. He does have a quirk, you fucking moron. His quirk was merely stolen, it was restored in that city, it was a super intelligence quirk, and before you fucking say that is useless, that is something the principal of UA has, and if he is a hero, Izuku can do the same fucking thing. He is also training to be a better fighter. As the mother and child argued, they came up with a bet. Kitsuki simply said there is no way a weak and wimpy guy like Deku would ever be good enough to be a police officer, let alone be a hero, simply because he trained to fight. Her mother told her that if he is a good fighter, then Katsuki will have to apologize to Izuku and call him by his name and not the nickname she picked for him, but if she was right, she will be able to ask for one favor as long as it was within the limits of the law and she could actually grant. 3 months Katsuki stopped hanging around with her friends and even stopped playing video games. She was laser focused on training her ability to create explosions using her quirk. She focused on trying to control the explosion to make it as tiny as possible, but strong enough that it could first lift a steel disc used as a weight and later to move around a teacup without shattering it. Little did she know that these methods of training were things that Izuku's mother asked him while talking to him in the evenings. For 6 months she trained and having some confidence in her skill, she proved that she had control over her explosion quirk when a friend of her mother had trouble blasting an old tree trunk to remove it from her backyard to expand her garden. It is really nice that my girl is at least trying to be useful and help you, Ray. Let's see how much she can do using her ability. If I can master making explosions using my quirk, she should be able to remove that old dead tree stump. Ray laughed and told her she could probably do that too if she used her freezing power to use the ice to cause the stump to split apart and make it easier to take out, but her husband actually had been helping her in her nighttime patrols, which sort of reminded her why she fell in love with the man in the first place. He kept her warm when she overused her powers, and she kept him from overheating and causing himself harm. Yay, that sounds nice, I wish I could do the same, but you know my husband was killed by that bastard that works for All for One, and Inko's husband killed the father of Izuku and also worked for the same bastard. If that is bad enough, she has to become a pro hero before she is even able to go and visit her son. Can you imagine how worried she is? The only thing she can do is talk with him once or twice per week when he has some free time. Sure enough, Katsuki did as Ray suggested. She used explosions to blast a tree stump into so many small pieces, it was easy for him to remove it completely, and what he couldn't was the stuff that got burned into ashes. You know we are getting our pro hero license next month, why don't we accompany Inko to finally go visit her son in that city he has been training at, and to make matters more fun, my little girl wants to see if Izuku has been training, and we made a bet that I intend on cashing. And wait to see Katsuki's face when she realized that Izuku is nothing as she remembers. This will be so much fun. As they got into the van that Mitsuki and Inko rented for the trip, Katsuki asked many things about the city, so much so that Inko finally had to tell her, "Alright, I will tell you about that hidden city, but you can't tell this about anyone. We will drive to a nearby town where one of the people of that city will have us wear blindfolds and drive our van into the city. No one may know where the city is or how to get to it." She immediately heard Katsuki asking why so much secrecy. Mitsuki told her that the city was the place where the hidden protectors of their nation live and train, the ninjas, and as such no one may know how they train or where they live. The enemies of other countries that wish to make an invasion of their country easier would want to eliminate them, and as such the city is not listed in any document. They are not even listed on the public zip codes or the phone book. In fact, all mail that is sent there has as an address as hidden postal office boxes that are scattered throughout the country. As they reached the parking lot of a nearby bus station, they met a man wearing a headband and a green flak jacket. It had a red circle with a swirl design on one of the shoulders. "Alright ladies, here put on these blindfolds and sit in the passenger seats in the back. Those that do not do as I told you cannot come to the city, and those that try to be tricky and pull up the blindfold to look shall be punished severely. You have been warned, this is nothing to joke about." As the women put on the blindfolds, the three sat in the back seats in the van as this man began to drive and suddenly felt like their trucks began to shake violently as the truck was driven down the road, almost like they were not still traveling on the street and instead they felt as if they were traveling off-road, and this made Katsuki think that they had no clue where the hell was this guy driving them. "I sure hope this guy isn't some crook that will kill us and dump our bodies where nobody can find us, paid off by some professional villain, that either of you has made him angry enough to pay off a guy to pretend to be the guy who we were supposed to meet." The driver began to laugh as he heard her say that, and he had to admit that is not such a bad assassination plan. He has in fact done that sort of thing before under orders of the emperor, so it is not out of the realm of possibility. Good to see that this young lady is taking into account the different possibilities that apply to her current situation. As the old motto says, you must look beneath the underneath. Very impressive. Inko asked him how long till they reached the city. The driver told her that it would only be a couple of more minutes to relax and not to worry about it. Unlike what the young girl said, he promised that as long as they follow the rules, they are perfectly safe. It felt like forever to them, and the ride was not smooth at all, and Katsuki kept complaining and asking "Are we there yet?" over and over again. Hearing nothing but the laughter of the man who was driving them, she decided to ask her mother something that was bothering her. "So mom, why did it take 10 months to do this and do this trip to go where Deku is wasting his time pretending to train?" Mitsuki told her that it took that long because unlike Inko and herself, she didn't have a professional hero license, and as such, it took them 10 months of talking with the leader of the city to allow her to even enter the city, and that, of course, made the paperwork and the dozens if not hundreds of meetings to finish before she was allowed to even travel to the hidden city where Izuku is leaving, and for the last time, stop calling him Deku. It really doesn't matter, there is no fucking way that Wimp could ever hope to be a hero, he is a loser without a quirk, no matter what excuses my mom or Inko said. In fact, Inko should thank me for trying to keep Deku alive by making him realize the reality that a quirkless person can never defeat one with a quirk, everyone knows this. The driver simply laughed as he heard her say that and simply advised her not to say that out loud while in the city, or someone might take offense to what she said and prove how wrong she is by beating her skull in. She ignored what the driver said simply by saying whatever as she was throwing an attitude. Chapter 5. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction only. Other franchises will be included. As soon as Inko and the others made it to the city, they were shocked to see that to anyone else the place didn't look any different than an ordinary city. It had streets and signs like most cities, businesses, hotels, 2 movie theaters and a couple of gyms, not to mention a large city library. The main things that were different were the 2 massive building complexes. Their guide told them the one on the left is the academy where everyone who is born in the city is enrolled to learn and train to be ninjas. The other one was the Hokage Tower, which to the others looked like a massive skyscraper, and on the face of it had a symbol that represents fire. In the city, however, there were several massive private complexes to which Inko and the others wondered who lives in such lavish places, to which their guide laughed and simply said that the nation had nobles, and so does their hidden city. These were the compounds of the noble clans. They achieved to become noble clans due to service and history of dedication to our city way back when it was just a village. These ancient clans also have the distinction of several being clans that had members of them becoming Hokage, such as Naruto. He is a member of the Uzumaki noble clan. Before him, there was the Senju noble clan, who has also had a few of their family become Hokage, the Heikate family. And that family didn't want to be declared noble because they hate the negative consequences of the fame that comes with that distinction. That is when Katsuki had enough of the tour and asked where the hell the one they came to find, Deku. There is no way that Deku, that weakling, has actually gotten stronger from just doing some physical training, not without a quirk. Their guide told Katsuki not to say that out loud. The ninja in their city has in fact fought and defeated many so-called quirk users before, but the thing is almost the entire population of the city does not have or was ever born with a quirk. And yet they can take down villains that most professional heroes have trouble with. Katsuki only said that was pure bullshit. There is no way a person without a quirk can defeat a person with a powerful quirk, not in a million years. If she had paid attention, she would notice that the person that was their guide was clearly upset by her comments, wanted to get this over and done with, so he doesn't have to be around the loudmouth pest. He guided them towards the building that Izuku lived in and had his apartment in. Never mind that it was in the red light district, and it was in fact the old apartment that the Hokage once lived in as a student of the academy. Naruto was at the time taking care of a bandit clearing mission in the Forest of Death. The bandits in question had been terrifying the traders that came towards the city. The Hokage placed a mission for anyone to eliminate the bandits and free any captives. These bastards not only loved to kill traders to take the merchandise, but also were a bunch that if the trader was traveling with a girl and that girl was cute, they would sell her in the underworld sex slave market. Izuku considered them some of the worst scum he had ever met before, so taking them out was indeed not only his duty but a joy. By the time evening finally came, he reported what he found. Indeed, he found 16 bandits being led around by a rogue ninja. Apparently, it was a ninja that escaped prison and was doing this to make the people in the city suffer as a form of revenge. Too bad for him, he was asleep, as were most of the bandits when Izuku attacked. It was quick and nobody heard him take all of these bandits out. The rogue must have been a heavy sleeper or absolutely plastered because he was taken out with a single kunai. As soon as he was done, he placed all the bodies in a scroll for easy transport, and when there were no one that stood in his way, he looked around and found a horde of things the bandits had taken from traders, merchants, and transport vehicles. But the most valuable thing was a cage holding not 1 but 6 young women, who apparently had all been working with the people these bandits killed and robbed. These ladies of course were happy because of the rescue, but to have the one that rescued them be this young was not what they were expecting, besides the fact that they also found something about the person who saved them that made them react strangely. They each covered his face with kisses, all screaming that the person who saved them was so cute that they each proclaimed that they wanted to eat him up. Much to his bad luck, Izuku didn't have any scrolls that could be used to store living things, much fewer people, so he had to withstand these ladies, asking all sorts of embarrassing questions as he guided them back to the Hokage Tower, where he would have to report the result of his mission. Naruto couldn't help but laugh as he saw Izuku walk into his office, surrounded by a gaggle of what could essentially be called plainclothes supermodels. After Naruto took their names, his secretary told the ladies they have to come with her to receive a medical check and wait till they find where they will have to give them a ride to. Naruto could see that Izuku just wanted to go to the bathroom and was his face off all the lipstick that was covering his face. Initially I told you it was going to be a D-rank mission and you were only supposed to scout the location, but I gather you decided to do this after you heard what these crooks were planning to do. It is easily a C rank, so I am going to make sure you receive payment for that, but again Izuku, you are still a student. I don't want you to continue to take all these reckless actions. Izuku could only apologize, but seeing these ladies in that cage and hearing that they planned to sell them to All For One as experimental fodder, he couldn't help it. His body started to move before he actually knew what he was doing. He just rushed in and began to take out the sentries, and before too long, he had taken care of all the bandits and the rogue ninja that was their leader. I am sorry Lord Hokage, but I couldn't help it, I ended up doing that out of sheer impulse. I don't think I even spent a few minutes thinking about the possible risk. He laughed and said that he sort of reminded him of the man Izuku mentioned to be his childhood idol. Well, I guess seeing who your role model is, I shouldn't be surprised. To put the safety and benefit of others ahead of yourself, to jump right in and save innocent people, and end a bad situation with a smile on your face, you almost remind me of a young All Might. Yes Izuku, I've been alive a lot longer than most realize, so yes I remember when the one that people now call the symbol of peace started to be a hero, and you remind me of him an awful lot. This made Izuku embarrassed as he heard Naruto say, by the way, you might want to go straight back to your apartment. Your mother, one of her friends and her daughter have come to pay you a visit. They even asked me to permit them to stay within Konoha for the remainder of this month. Your mom is probably waiting for you in my old apartment, so don't worry about your pay. I will deposit it in your account, so just hurry back and let your mom see how much you have grown since last you saw her. Izuku looked at him and simply chose to ignore that last part. So Lord Hokage, are there any other missions that I can do for today? Naruto had to admit that Izuku's devotion and work ethic was something that most ninja families would admire, or maybe it was less about that and the fact he still didn't want to see his childhood bully and her mother. Naruto told him that there were no other missions that needed to be done, and if he wanted to do more missions, he would have to come the next day, after his day at the academy, like always. Izuku waited to be excused, and once he left the office and walked down the corridor, only to find some of his fellow ninjas there talking about his latest mission, clearly wanting to talk about it with Izuku over some ramen. Well, I would love to talk about the absolutely crazy stuff that happened in that mission over some ramen, even some dango. Apparently my mother and some other people have come a long way to pay me a visit, so I will have to take a rain check on that. We can talk about it between classes back at the academy. The two girls didn't look too happy about it and teased him that maybe he just wanted to go back to his place and take a much needed bath and go to sleep, which was understandable. Sure thing Izuku, we will talk when we meet in the academy. Oh, by the way, don't forget about our teacher making that bet with you and be sure to collect your prize. Can't believe you asked for a collection set of Icha books. Why did you ask for something as nuts as that? Izuku began to walk away as he said that he could always use some more reading material, especially when he was having trouble falling asleep. As he walked down the streets, the city felt like he had lived as a citizen most of his life. Some of the shop owners greeted him as a regular customer, and he knew most of the shops that ninjas used to visit for their needs. One of his favorites was owned and operated by that nice lady named Tenten. There is something about working out using an actual weapon that made him feel almost excited. As he reached the red light district, he saw his neighbors still playing their craft and using their sex appeal as a means to get information, even using it to get in close to targets for assassinations. These may look like prostitutes, but Izuku knew they were some of the most deadly ninjas in the city, and thanks to them, he actually got tutored to be a rather impressive masseur. Several of his neighbors still loved to get a massage from him. And he could always use the practice and constructive criticism. Hey Izuku, some girls ask us where you live. We even told them where you keep your spare key. Hope that is not a problem, but if it is, be sure to call for us if you need to deal with some home invaders. Izuku smiled as he began to walk towards the stairs. No, that is more than likely my mom, my surrogate aunt, and her daughter paying me a home visit to see how I am doing. Nothing too much to worry about, but I do thank you all for caring about me. Since I have to spend time with family, however, sorry if we have to reschedule that massage. One of his neighbors giggled as he began to walk up the stairs toward the floor where his apartment is. It was pretty weird that they were giggling like that. Oh well, no time for that. Izuku needed to focus on the many questions that no doubt were coming his way. As he reached his apartment door, he quickly took the key from his shoe and opened the door, only to be given a bone-crushing hug as he was dragged into the living room of his apartment. Mom, it seems you've been working out. Great, if Metal had seen this, I wouldn't be able to stop hearing about how your flames of youth burned so bright for weeks. But really mom, let me get in and put away my gear before we can start talking and I can answer your questions. Inko looked at her son who was taller than she remembered and immediately noticed that his face was covered in lipstick marks, almost like a woman or several women had kissed him several times on his face. Okay, son, but as you do mind telling me why you have so many kisses plastered on your face and whose lips did that to you? Izuku merely walked to a wall in his living room and with a small tap the wall seemed to open up to display quite the array of throwing weapons, scrolls, knives, and other bladed weapons. He took his belt off and put everything in the proper place. It is nothing as scandalous as you was picturing mom, I merely rescued a bunch of kidnapped young women from a den of bandits, typical stuff, honestly women should really stop believing the lies of some of these crooks that promise them fame and fortune as future supermodels. They were kidnapped by the bandits and you honestly don't want to know what these crooks plan to do with them. As I said nothing major, just an everyday mission for a ninja in the city. Yes, I am a student but I sometimes need a little extra money so I do the occasional mission now and then. Inko looked at his apartment and as she sat down on a sofa she laughed, well if you had told me you needed money, I could have wired some to your bank account, but I guess you wanted to be more independent, which I got to say that I was shocked that your apartment is in this particular district in the city, and with such colorful and interesting neighbors, wearing shall I dare say it, rather revealing clothes. Izuku also told her every person in the city is a fully trained ninja, and his neighbors are no exemption. The red light district may seem like the seediest and crime-ridden neighborhood in other cities, but in Konoha, it is actually one of the safest places to live. These people are not only beautiful but also extremely deadly. Nobody is going to mess with anyone in his neighborhood, and the added bonus that he also learned to give one hell of a massage. So all in all living in this apartment building was anything if not an extremely good learning experience. Come on Izuku, how tough can you possibly be without a quirk? I don't buy that bullshit that you always had an intelligence quirk at all, you never had a quirk and people made that shit up about you to make you feel better, that is all. So how could this place help train a pathetic loser like you? Why don't you just fucking give up this crappy dream of becoming a hero? Well, it seems Katsuki had not changed much at all. Najimi probably is off hunting in the forest, which is a good thing. Had she heard something like that she would want to beat the ever crap out of her for talking to me like that. So you still think you are so powerful that you will be the next top hero in the world and a worthless worm should just drop to my knees and worship the ground you walk on. Before I might have been easy to intimidate, but it is high time you learn to respect me. As Izuku said this he sent so much killer intent around himself that it made the three of them start to shudder. You think I am still the same person you used to bully? Why don't we do something about that? How about I show you around the academy grounds and more importantly the sparring areas, and there I shall show you what I have been able to learn and how different I am due to my training, but keep this in mind, I will not take it easy on you. As Izuku walked back to the very same gear storage closet, he picked a few things like a couple of kunai, shuriken, some pieces of paper, a couple of scrolls, and a mask. As he put these items on, he told the others to follow him. As Izuku began to give them a guided tour of the grounds around the academy building, the gardens, and the many areas where many human-shaped mannequins made of wood stood all around the area, he explained these were targets for practical skills. He explained that the classes involve two parts, theory and practical skills. The area where they are is where the students learn practical skills. Katsuki was about to call it bullshit until Izuku threw a shuriken and pinned what seemed to be a scorpion on one of the targets near Katsuki. You really need to be aware of your surroundings, Ka-chan. That type of scorpion has poison that can kill you in a matter of seconds. Had I not taken care of it, you would be dead right now. This is part of the academy, but I never said it was without any danger. As the three of them saw that he walked over and took back his shuriken and did something rather strange, he grabbed the dead scorpion and placed it on one of the scrolls, and it disappeared. This is a storage scroll. As to where the dead scorpion is, inside the seals on this scroll, I am going to use it later to make some poison for my weapons. Now follow me and I shall show you the place where students spar against each other. Mitsuki asked him what is he going to use that weapon for anyways, it's not like he kills people with them, to which Izuku simply looked at her with a quiet glare. She finally decided to shut up and followed them to a very nice open area with several circles made on the soft soil. This is the place where students spar with each other during practical skills class. Now you said I have gained nothing from training or studying here, why don't we put that to the test and we can do that with you and I sparring against each other. If I win you will apologize for your insult and listen to what I am telling you, and if you win, then you obviously have every right to continue to call me a weakling, and yes, I will promptly give up my dream of becoming a hero. Mitsuki was quick to jump in and ask what the restrictions on the people fighting going to be. Izuku told her that Katsuki can go nuts. So far at most the only combat she has seen is a child's playground brawl. That is not what Izuku has been through. He knows actual combat, so it doesn't matter what she does, or even if she uses her quirk. In fact, Izuku will defeat her anyways. This had the desired effect of royally pissing her off, and she immediately began to use her quirk to create explosions, trying to blast him out of the ring, but much to her shock, not only did he either negate or flat out take the blast head on with little effect, but he quickly used his surrounding to toss dirt in the air and used that dirt to blind her. She was too slow to react, and a swift low sweeping kick caused her to lose her balance and quickly grabbed one arm and tossed her clean off the arena. Mitsuki quickly complained that was playing dirty. No, that is using your surroundings to defeat your enemy. Ninjas may not fight as clean as a knight, but we get things done. You will continue to complain either way, but find I will use more of my own techniques and skills if it makes you admit your defeat, but just so you know I can easily end this fight in a way that you would not live to see another day. As they went back to the circle, she quickly tried to grab him and use her explosion quirk directly to his head, but he used the lessons he learned from the academy and the Hagoromo Taijutsu style to knock her hand away from him, causing her explosion to miss. He quickly pulled something from his jacket and placed it on his face. It was a strange set of goggles that with a flick on his finger the color of the lenses changed into a light purple color. And you made a big mistake thinking that you were going to catch me by surprise because you are now in my field of divination. Without a single other thing, said Izuku quickly began to punch her all over her body over 180 strikes in a matter of a few seconds. Mitsuki was in no pain at all, except that when she first tried to walk over to where Izuku was she fell over on the ground unable to move. 8 trigrams, 180 palm strike. You may not be in pain, but I hit every single one of your pressure points. You are not going to be able to move for a couple of minutes if not half an hour. In that time I could kill you in many horrible ways, and what is worse, you have a little thing called chakra flowing through your body, but because you don't know how to use it, you can't even match me physically. You have been doing nothing but talk trash, but every single ninja in this village can do what the current heroes can do and better, and not a single one of them has a quirk. He walked over to Katsuki holding a kunai and pointed it at her, and as for me killing people, I have killed more bandits than you can imagine. You see all this on my face, that is for me saving a bunch of ladies who were kidnapped after they were tricked by bandits, thinking they were being scouted to be supermodels, but instead the bandits were going to sell them to be sex slaves, and this is with me still having 3 more years before I even finish my time at the academy. I am currently studying things that make what All Might does look like a joke, and I know of at least 10 ways to use the actual elements to empower my body or help me become that much stronger. You keep taking garbage thinking that you are all that, but in 3 years, and if you keep being the way you are, I will be able to defeat you in about the time it takes for you to blink. Mitsuki was indignant saying that pro heroes don't kill. Izuku was quick to remark that he isn't a pro hero at all. He is training to be a ninja, and if what is needed to complete a mission is to kill a few people, so be it. It doesn't make him feel anything worse, knowing that killing a few dozen people ends up saving hundreds if not thousands in the long run. As he said this he suddenly remembered something. Actually Kachan, there are 2 heroes that have both killed a ton of villains, the number 2 hero Endeavor and his wife the number 3 hero Killer Frost. So yeah, that whole thing that heroes don't kill villains is absolute bullshit. Even if you want to sugarcoat it, there is no way to avoid that fact. It is something ninjas know only too well. Mitsuki wanted to argue with him that was not right, that heroes are supposed to save lives, to which both her mother and Izuku's mother put her hands on her shoulders as she was shaking in rage after hearing what Izuku said. Like I said, I am not even the lowest rank a ninja can have, a genin, and even I was able to beat your ass, so take it from me Kachan, in the next 3 years, I will be training a lot harder, learning a lot more, and mastering more and more skills. If you don't want to be left in the dust you better realize your precious quirk is only one aspect of yourself. You need to train all the others parts if you want to catch up with me, your body, your mind, and I might even say your soul. Only when all aspects are trained is when balance can be achieved, and only you can attempt to become truly strong if you think you can. As Izuku spent the rest of the day with his mother, Mitsuki and Katsuki as he continued to give them a tour of his favorite places, which included his favorite restaurant, Ichiraku, and the many different sites like the Monument of Remembrance, where all the ninjas who died for Konoha had their names written. As the day was over and Inko asked her son if he was truly happy with how he was living his life, to which Izuku told his mom he wouldn't have it any other way since he was recognized as a part of an ancient ninja clan. Mitsuki hearing this asked him what could this mean, to which Izuku told her that since he is becoming a ninja, the Clan Omii Restoration Act would be involved, an act that was set in place in case the numbers of a clan grow too low. The last surviving members of the clan were ordered to marry multiple women to increase the population of the clan to a more stable number. So Izuku sounds like you are going to be pretty much ordered to have a harem and have as many children as possible, so each child becomes a member of your family or clan. You know polygamy is illegal in Japan, but considering that this law was established long before Japan was a nation, that shouldn't be much of an issue. The only thing I am going to be sad about is that my little girl is going to have some serious competition. Do you have any idea what can she do to train? Izuku looked at the concerned look on Mitsuki's face and couldn't help but do something to help her. He immediately walked over to one of his bookshelves and got a book. Here, have her read and do as this book tells her to do, and she should become a lot stronger than she currently is. It is one of the books the Lord Hokage gave to me when I first moved into this apartment, a sort of home-warming gift. The title is a bit much, but it is a good book. Regardless on how it is called Cultivation for Dummies. It really is a simple book to read and understand. It only took me 10 minutes to understand everything I needed to do and finish the first rotation of the set in the book in a week, so all in all Katsuki shouldn't have much of a problem as long as she follows what the book tells her to do, no excuses, no second guessing. Mitsuki thanked Izuku for this as she confessed that being beaten probably was not something that Katsuki expected and that this will help her feel better. The following day Inko, Mitsuki and Katsuki were going back to their homes, but not without the standard warning from Naruto that the location and everything they heard or learned here was supposed to be kept secret on the pain of death. Izuku knew that he was not kidding, but he also thought that they probably thought Naruto did that to be dramatic. Naruto is Hokage, he doesn't say something unless he actually means it, but these people didn't know any better. For the next 3 years, Naruto decided to increase his training by adding more chakra weights to his training, leaving more clones to fully master sealing arts and other skills. This made him so busy that he didn't have much time to socialize like before, but knowing that Katsuki was probably going to go buck wild with her training, it left him no room to leave a thing to chance. He had to train harder to keep being stronger than Katsuki. The genie told him and he thought that she did her bullying because she cared about him, but he was not going to leave himself open for more bullying by not making sure he was strong enough to put an end to any bullying attempt on him. On the day when he finally got his headband, Naruto gave him the order to infiltrate the supposed professional heroes and investigate if any of them were any potential danger to the city, to the nation, and to the world. This would be a long-term Class S mission. He could still use his snake summons should he need to send word back to Konoha or send reports if he found anything that they should know immediately. The genie and the 2 other genin Anko Uzumaki and Kurenai Uzumaki, the granddaughters of Naruto would, of course, go with him, and thanks to Najini's father, was the reason why he was able to both sign the contract and manage to be accepted to take on training on the Snake Sage arts. Getting bitten by the Snake Sage was painful and deadly, but he somehow managed to survive it and the time actually went different than that of Earth, so he managed to become a Snake Sage in only 1 year. Najini, Anko, Kurenai and Izuku took the train back to the capital and they figured that they should go and meet with Izuku's mother to arrange a place to live if that fails. He still had money that he earned in missions, so he could probably rent an apartment for both of them. As the 4 of them walked down the sidewalk they suddenly heard something like fireworks going off. That was strange. It was till he placed his goggles on and set them to use his most powerful Dijutsu setting that he realized what was going on. It seems that some strange water blob was trying to both drown and keep Katsuki captive at the same time. The strange thing was he could see what could be eyes on the thing, so he figured the blob was an attacker using a quirk. Using the ice release mode of ninjutsu, his punch caused the slime that was holding Katsuki to freeze and Najini, without having the need to be told, broke it apart with a single punch. This made Najini catch Katsuki and helped her get her airways clear enough so that she could breathe, but also moved away as she knew Izuku was not done. Izuku was holding in his hand the empty soda bottle that he had just finished and he had an idea. He used the wind release mode to suck in the water blob into the empty bottle, as if the empty bottle had been a vacuum cleaner. As soon as the water blob was in the bottle he closed the cap and placed a seal on it to prevent it from opening again. That takes care of that. Didn't expect to see this on my way home. Well, no matter what, it is time that we take this thing to the proper authorities. Just as they were about to walk away a crash was heard as if someone landed after jumping down from a great height. They heard from a large cloud of dust, "Never fear, cause I am here." Chapter 6. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction. Other franchises will be included. Izuku Midoriya had just finished tackling a villain who had been causing chaos in the city. His body was tense, sweat trickling down his forehead from the exertion. His heels scraped lightly against the uneven asphalt as he caught his breath, scanning the area for any lingering threats. The fight had been intense, but he and his team had managed to subdue the troublemaker, restoring a sliver of peace to the busy street. His team members, 2 young women dressed in dark ninja-like attire, stood slightly behind him, alert but relaxed now that the danger was over. Suddenly, a familiar gust of wind announced the arrival of a strong presence. Turning, Izuku saw All Might approaching. The number 1 hero moved swiftly, his bright smile replaced with a look of concern. His eyes, usually full of warmth and reassurance, held a flicker of confusion as he studied the scene. It wasn't just the intense expression on his face that drew attention, but the way he looked around, as if trying to piece together what just happened. All Might's voice broke the quiet. "Where's the villain?" he asked, his tone sharp but eager. His gaze flicked from Izuku to the surrounding area, eyes searching for any signs of the suspect's escape. There was a slight edge of impatience behind his words, hinting that he expected quick answers. The hero's muscles tensed as if preparing for action, even though everything appeared to be under control. His brow furrowed as he threw a quick glance at the scene, trying to gauge if the threat was truly gone. Izuku let out a long, exhausted sigh. His shoulders slumped slightly as he shifted to face the hero. The two ninja girls beside him kept their stance steady, their eyes sharp and attentive. He gestured towards the nearby police station, knowing that All Might usually preferred to confirm things in person. "Already taken care of," Izuku said quietly, his voice calm but firm. "My team and I handled it. The villain has been captured. If you want to verify, follow us to the station." All Might blinked, clearly taken aback by the boy's calm tone. His eyebrows drew together in a subtle but visible frown. "He escaped?" he asked, voice lowering slightly in concern. There was a sense that the hero's confidence was shaken by this new information. It was as if he had expected the boy's team to have failed, or at least not to capture the villain so easily. Izuku shook his head with a small, almost tired smile. "No," he replied simply. "Captured. The police will verify everything once we get to the station. That's where the suspect is being held." His words carried a weight that made it clear he was not just talking about the physical act of catching a villain, he was communicating something deeper about his approach to hero work. He looked straight into All Might's eyes, showing no doubt or hesitation. His expression was one of cool confidence, something unusual for a young hero still learning the ropes. At that moment, All Might realized that this boy was different from the usual crowd of fans lining up to get his autograph, those who simply looked up to him for his strength and fame. Izuku Midoriya was focused, pragmatic, and carried a sense of cold efficiency that suggested he was already thinking ahead what came next, what needed to be done, and how to get it done properly. All Might's concern deepened. He could see the seriousness in Izuku's face, a stiffness in his posture that told him this kid was not about hero showmanship. It wasn't about heroics for the sake of glory. Instead, Izuku was about making sure order was restored with precision and minimal fuss. The boy's eyes were steady, unwavering as he waited for the police to arrive at the scene. It was a level of professionalism that seemed to set him apart from others his age. The scene around them was quiet but energized. Sirens blared faintly in the distance, police cars pulling into the alleyway. News crews might have been arriving, caught up in the rush of a city that never slept, chasing the story of the villain's capture. Yet despite the chaos, Izuku remained calm. His mind was already focused on the next step, reviewing what went wrong, what was done well, and what to improve for future encounters. All Might felt a strange mix of admiration and concern. This boy's attitude reminded him of the seriousness heroes needed. Yet, there was also a flicker of something else, a quiet, steely resolve that hinted at potential beyond his years. Izuku Midoriya was not just a hero in training. He was a hero in the making, approaching his work with a level of maturity that bordered on cold efficiency. As they moved towards the police station, Izuku kept a close eye on his surroundings. His mind was racing through every detail of the encounter. How the villain was caught, what tactics his team used, and the subtleties of their cooperation. Every move was deliberate. Every decision had been made to maximize efficiency and safety. He was learning fast, and it was clear that he was more than just a fan of All Might's heroics. He was ready to carry that mantle someday, with a different style than what the world was used to. All Might's gaze lingered on the boy as they walked. It was rare to see such calm professionalism in someone so young. He wondered what kinds of struggles Izuku had faced to gain such composure. What doubts he might harbor beneath that collected exterior. Still, the fact remained, this boy had what it took to become a true hero. A hero who didn't just rely on strength, but one who understood the importance of strategy, discipline, and intelligence. In that quiet moment, amid the sounds of flashing cameras and the distant hum of city life, a new realization dawned on All Might. Izuku Midoriya was not just a hopeful. He was a future pillar of heroism. And as they reached the police station, the hero felt a flicker of pride, mixed with a flicker of worry. Because with a hero like him on the rise, the landscape of hero society might just be about to change forever. At the bustling police station, a scene of quiet chaos was unfolding. Officers hurried back and forth, filling the air with urgent footsteps and muffled conversations. In the middle of the room, Izuku stood beside his teammates, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. He hoped they wouldn't get into too much trouble. His eyes darted around for any sign of suspicion or hostility, but most officers barely paid him any mind except for one. This particular officer, balding and overweight, was fixated on a box of donuts he kept nibbling on, oblivious to everything else around him. His attention flickered between the shiny badge on his chest and the sugary treat. When Izuku's hand instinctively reached for a soda bottle, he carried no doubt the same one he'd brought along during the stint to catch the villain. The officer barely looked up. Instead, he mumbled something about the villain they just subdued and went back to munching as if Izuku wasn't even there. For a split second, Izuku wondered if he'd been completely ignored. But then, with a sudden surge of frustration, Izuku took a step forward. With deliberate strength, he slammed the soda bottle containing the slime villain onto the desk. The glass made a loud, shattering noise, the sound echoing through the room and breaking the officer's concentration. The slime villain, a slick malleable creature that shimmered with a toxic green glow, spilled out of the broken bottle, oozing onto the surface. Murmurs rippled through the crowd of officers and onlookers. The unexpected move caught everyone's attention instantly. The whispers grew louder, some speculative, others skeptical. One officer pointed vaguely in the direction of the hero figures like All Might who had just arrived. Probably All Might caught him, someone whispered with a tone of disbelief. Those kids are just trying to steal credit. The words felt like a slap, an accusation that they could easily dismiss as childish bravado or overconfidence, yet beneath the surface, it hinted at the skepticism many held about youngsters coming into their precinct and claiming heroics. All Might, standing nearby with his usual wide grin and imposing presence, simply nodded. His voice was steady but warm as if he'd expected this kind of misunderstanding. "I got here after the villain was already subdued," he said, addressing the crowd and standing tall as a figure of reassurance. His eyes swept over the scene, calm and reassuring despite the chaos around him. That statement immediately silenced most of the murmuring, the room falling into a thick, expectant silence. In the quiet, an officer stepped forward, his hand moving instinctively to his cuffs. Without hesitation, he reached for Izuku and his team, intending to detain them for what he believed was unauthorized use of quirks. The tension ratcheted up a notch. Whispers floated again, this time with suspicion, questioning whether these kids were truly heroes or just reckless amateurs overstaying their welcome. Izuku felt a rush of unease. His mind raced with worry. If they cuffed them now, everything they'd worked for could fall apart. His voice, usually steady, came out sharp and urgent. "My quirk is intelligence," he snapped, voice loud enough to cut through the chatter. "We're genin. Look at our headbands, you idiots." His words carried a mix of frustration and determination. The room seemed to pause. A few officers looked down at their badges and then exchanged glances. One older cop, who had been quietly observing from the sidelines, finally caught the details on their headbands. Recognition flickered in his eyes. His face softened slightly as memories surfaced, thoughts of old stories, legends, and symbols. "They're ninjas," he finally said, voice more measured. "From that symbol, I can tell. They're from Konoha, the Hidden Leaf Village." His tone carried a mixture of familiarity and curiosity. He paused and looked closer, stepping forward with cautious respect. "I'll contact the Konoha representative," he said, voice clear. "Thanks for handling the villain. You did good work here." His gaze shifted to the team, now with a sprinkle of genuine appreciation. "Names, please." In response, Nagini and Kurenai introduced themselves without hesitation, confident, proud even. "We're Uzumaki's," they said in unison. "This is our team leader, Izuku Midoriya." Their tone was firm and calm, but carried a hint of pride. This wasn't just an ordinary visit. It was a clear sign of their identity and purpose. Izuku watched the older officer carefully, feeling a small surge of relief. His heart still raced, but he knew they had made a good impression. The doubts that had previously clouded the room began to dissipate, replaced by a tentative understanding. Still, he couldn't shake off the fear that further complications might arise or that misunderstandings might escalate. The police station was a place of chaos and order, of authority and uncertainty. For Izuku and his team, it was a testimony to show that even young heroes, despite their age and inexperience, could stand tall and do what's right. All the tension in the air was palpable, but beneath it all, a sense of hope lingered. Perhaps, just perhaps, they had turned a corner today, earning respect in a place that often viewed outsiders with suspicion. All Might's face grew serious and stern as he listened to the boy's reply. His expression was hard to read, a mixture of concern and quiet resolve. The moment was tense, filled with unspoken understanding. As they prepared to leave, All Might gently reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Izuku's shoulder, and carefully patted him down, a gesture of comfort, of reassurance that he was there for him. His voice was calm but firm when he finally spoke. "So, you're the one. The one I've been searching for. You're the one who will carry on the legacy." His words hung in the air, weighty with meaning. Then he paused, his eyes softening just a little, and added, "We need to talk about your training. There's much you'll need to learn if you're going to step into that role." Izuku didn't respond immediately. His mind was racing, filled with questions and doubts, but also a firm sense of urgency. All his priorities crowded his mind like a cluttered room: his mother, UA, and finding a place to stay. His voice was almost hurried when he finally managed to say, "I need to see my mom, register for UA, and find somewhere to live first. I don't have time to waste on training or discussions right now." His tone was clear, but beneath it, there was a flicker of desperation. He felt torn, caught between the weight of responsibility and the urgent need to keep his loved one safe, to settle his life before diving into the world of heroes. Seeing the anxious tension in Izuku's face, All Might didn't press further. Instead, he offered his support in a different way. I can help you with your registration. I can also join you when you go to see your mother. It's important we meet her, so she knows you're safe. His voice was supportive and reassuring, yet full of a quiet strength that seemed to settle the boy's nerves a little. Izuku hesitated for a moment, then grudgingly nodded. He knew All Might's help could be valuable, but the thought of dealing with all these things, more tasks, more worries, felt overwhelming. Still, he also felt a tiny spark of relief, knowing someone powerful and kind was on his side. Later that day, they arrived at Inko Midoriya's home. It was a modest place, simple but cozy, nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The front yard was well kept, with a small garden of blooming flowers that added splashes of color. Inko was already home, just after her shift at the local supermarket. She was straightening up the living room when she saw her son enter, a mixture of surprise and joy lighting her face. Her eyes widened when she spotted All Might among the group. Her hands froze mid-motion, and her mouth parted slightly in shock. She hadn't expected to see her son's hero here, or anyone else, for that matter. The atmosphere in the house shifted instantly with her arrival. She hurried over, her brow furrowed with concern and curiosity. Izuku. You're home early. And who is this? Her gaze flicked to All Might, her eyes narrowing as she wondered who this imposing man was, especially appearing without warning. Before Izuku could answer, a comfortable aroma of tea and cookies filled the air. The table was already set, the china cups gleaming softly in the warm afternoon light. Nagini and Kurenai, two girls accompanying Izuku, wasted no time and eagerly moved toward the snacks, their faces bright with excitement. The two stepped closer to the table, their eyes sparkling as they reached for the treats. Nagini, a girl with long black hair and an eager smile, reached out with a quick, graceful motion. Kurenai, slightly more reserved but equally curious, started nibbling on a cookie, her gaze bouncing between the food and the adults in the room. Inko stepped back, still processing everything, her mind racing to understand the situation. You didn't get kicked out of Konoha, did you? She asked, her voice tentative, trying to keep calm despite her rising worries. No, Mom, Izuku replied, voice steady, but with a hint of apology. These girls are part of my group. We're a team now. We rescued Kitsuki from a slime villain, something I think you should know about. You might want to tell her mother about it. Her eyes widened further at those words, and her entire expression changed. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked at her son in a new light. You rescued Kitsuki. She repeated softly as if the words were hard to believe. Is he okay? Is he hurt? What happened? Izuku nodded, still feeling a bit uneasy about launching into a recounting that felt almost surreal. He's fine now, but it was a close call. The slime villain was dangerous, and we weren't sure we'd make it out in one piece. Kurenai and Nagini helped a lot, even kept me safe when things got tense. Inko's eyes lifted with worry and pride, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and relief. She looked at her son, seeing the resolve in his eyes. Izuku, I'm glad you're safe. I worry about you, always. You're so brave, but I worry you push yourself too hard. And this Kitsuki, he's your friend? She asked, voice gentle but attentive. Yeah, Mom. He's a friend. A really close one, Izuku replied quietly, a flicker of concern crossing his face as he remembered the chaos and danger they had faced. There's a lot I need to tell you, but first, I wanted you to know I'm okay. And I wanted to introduce you to Nagini and Kurenai. They're part of my team now. They're important and they're helping me become a hero. Inko's expression softened. Her eyes flicked from her son to the two girls, recognizing the earnestness in their faces. Thank you for taking care of him, she said softly, her voice trembling a little. The world out there can be so cruel, and I just worry sometimes. I worry about your safety, Izuku. But I see how determined you are. I want you to be careful, always. The room fell quiet for a moment, filled with a sense of warmth and worry. Despite her initial surprise, Inko finally stepped forward, reaching out to embrace her son. Her arms wrapped around him tightly, holding him close as if to shield him from any harm. The sight of that silent, tender embrace made the room feel smaller, but also infinitely safer. As the afternoon wore on, more of their stories emerged. Izuku recounted his journey to the hero world, the challenges and lessons he faced, and his hopes for the future. The girls listened intently, their eyes shining with admiration and excitement. Inko, listening with a mix of pride and concern, kept glancing at her son, her mind flooded with questions about his new life and the dangerous path he was choosing. Throughout it all, the house offered a quiet sanctuary, a place where a mother's love and a hero's promise intertwined. The harmony was fragile but real, rooted in a shared hope that Izuku's journey was finally beginning. But beneath the surface, a worry lingered, threading through every word and glance. Would Izuku be safe? Could he survive the challenges ahead? And in the end, would he be able to balance his dream of becoming a hero with the needs of his family and himself? The answers were still uncertain, but for now, they simply enjoyed this moment of peace and connection, knowing how precious it truly was. Physically, yes, she was unharmed. Her body hadn't sustained any injuries that could be seen or felt. No cuts, bruises, or broken bones. She was standing upright, breathing steady, her movement smooth. It was almost a miracle. Her stamina held out, and her body responded without lingering pain or fatigue. It was a clear sign that the physical confrontation, however intense it had been, didn't end with her needing immediate medical attention. Still, that wasn't the whole story. Emotionally? Well, that was a different matter entirely. Her spirit was far from intact. Her face showed signs of strain and exhaustion. She looked visibly shaken, her eyes darting around the room, as if searching for reassurance she wasn't about to find. Her hands trembled slightly, betraying her calm exterior. Her mind replayed every moment the sudden burst of chaos, the slime's grotesque form, the terror creeping into her chest. This wasn't just about her body. Her confidence had taken a hit. It was clear she was trying to hold back tears or maybe anger. Her emotions were bubbling just beneath the surface, threatening to spill over. She was worse than usual, yes, because her usual composure had crumbled under the weight of the panic and fear that roiled inside her. She wasn't her usual steady self. Her voice, usually firm and controlled, sometimes cracked when she spoke. Her breathing was uneven. It was obvious this experience had scarred her, in some way, more deeply than the physical damage could suggest. She looked vulnerable now, more fragile than anyone had seen her before. Every inch of her appearance reflected her emotional toll. Her shoulders hunched just a little, her eyes glossing over as if she were reliving the moment. That moment when she thought she might have lost everything. Her face was flushed, her mind flooded with doubt and anger. She felt overwhelmed, frustrated, and scared that this could happen again. All Might, who had confirmed the story with a steady voice, explained how he had arrived too late, how the villain had already begun his rampage, leaving destruction in his wake. His tone was calm and authoritative, but even he sounded a tad strained as he detailed his arrival. He went over how Izuku, with his quick thinking, had used a sealing technique to contain the creature, a move that may have saved lives and prevented the villain from escaping. It was a clever use of his quirk, a technique that had taken years to master, but had proved invaluable in that moment. All Might described how Izuku's hands glowed faintly as he sealed the creature, how the bizarre slime had writhed and hissed but couldn't break free from the magical restraints. It was a rare, almost miraculous feat, and it showcased how much Izuku had grown and how his skills were maturing rapidly under pressure. Meanwhile, Inko reached for her phone, her fingers trembling as she hurriedly unlocked it. She tried to dial her friend's number, eager to hear just how bad things had gotten. Yet, before she could even connect, the room plunged into a tense silence. The moment was shattered by the explosion of her friend's voice over the line. It was loud, angry, and full of raw emotion. "What the hell do you mean my damn daughter nearly got slaughtered by some slime-ass villain? Are you kidding me?" Her friend roared, voice cracking with disbelief and fury. What the fuck was she thinking, not fucking bombing that creature to hell the second she saw it? She's supposed to be a hero in training, not some helpless victim. Why didn't she just blow the thing to pieces? Why did she have to hold back? "I swear, I'm in the middle of a fucking shoot right now, wearing this stupid lifeguard uniform, and all I can think about is how close I came to losing her." Her words tumbled out like a storm, a montage of frustration, panic, and guilt. Her voice rang with a mixture of anger and fear, a raw expression of her worst worries. She exhaled sharply, then, realizing how intense her outburst had been, she tried to steady herself. But the tension in her voice lingered. Inko, listening quietly, kept her composure though inside, her heart was pounding. She responded in a calm, steady voice, promising she would go check on Katsuki herself. Her tone was soothing, trying to reassure her friend that her daughter was safe, at least physically, and that she'd be there soon. She didn't want her friend to worry more than she already had. Izuku, observing everything as if in a haze, slowly stood. His legs felt heavy, but he knew he couldn't just sit still. He looked around the room, taking in the scene, his mother's tense posture, her friend's furious outburst, the faint smell of sweat and adrenaline hanging in the air. He cleared his throat gently, trying to find the right words before speaking. "We need to handle some things," he said softly. "We have to move to a new place. We need new clothes and supplies because we're going to be living somewhere else for a while." The word sounded simple, but inside, he was filled with a mixture of worry and determination. His mind raced with the reasons how the Hokage decided to enroll them in his old school to keep them safe, how he'd need to adapt quickly to the new environment. It was a lot to process, being uprooted like this, suddenly transitioning from a life of relative normalcy to a chaotic world filled with danger and heroes. He added quietly, "It's important that we keep everyone safe. That's why we're moving." His voice carried a note of resolve, a silent promise to himself to protect his friends and family, no matter what came next. Chapter 7. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction. Other franchises will be included. Inko, eyes narrowing slightly, snapped at him, "Where do you think you're going? Do you realize how fragile things might still be? We don't just pack up and run." Izuku looked her in the eyes, steady and firm. "We have to. It's the safest option. We can't stay here and risk anything happening again. I know we'll be okay, but I need to do this for everyone's safety." Inko paused, her gaze flickering with worry. She hesitated, torn between her protective instincts and her understanding of her son's sense of responsibility. She took a deep breath and then nodded slowly, knowing that whatever was coming, they had to be ready for it. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant sounds of sirens and the hum of emergency vehicles outside. The chaos that had once seemed like just a spectacle had now seeped into their everyday lives, changing everything in an instant. This was no longer just a conversation about heroics. It was about survival, about ensuring they could start over again, even in the face of chaos. With a silent resolve, they prepared for what was to come, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by their shared determination to protect those they loved. "You'll stay here," she declared firmly, her voice echoing with a quiet authority that broke no argument. "This is my floor, and I own it outright. It's fully furnished, ready for use, and I've got connections with contacts who deal in clothing samples. I can arrange for you to get anything you need, whether it's casual wear, something more formal, or even specialized gear. Don't worry about a thing. Just stay here for now, and I'll take care of everything." Her words carried a note of assurance, but beneath them was a complex mix of ownership and control, a subtle reminder that she was the one calling the shots. After settling the matter, she paused for a moment before turning toward Izuku's team, her expression softening slightly as she added, "I can take you to see Katsuki in the hospital if you want. It's not far from here. I think he'd want to see you all. But be prepared, you'll see him in a state you might not expect. He's been through a lot." Her tone suggested that visiting Katsuki was not just a simple gesture, but also a way to keep tabs on the boy she cared about, in her own way. Izuku's face tightened with a mixture of conflicting emotions. His brow furrowed deeply, a clear sign of his inner turmoil. "Mom," he began, voice edged with hesitance, "don't get the wrong idea. I didn't save her because I cared about her or even because I wanted to. My team, they're the ones who did the actual work. They saved a civilian. That's all there is to it." His words sounded like a shield meant to protect him from unnecessary feelings and the unwanted attention that might come with his act of heroism. He clenched his fist slightly, a reflexive gesture of defiance or perhaps guilt, unsure which. Inko raised an eyebrow, her eyes narrowing slightly as if she were studying him. She knew her son well enough to sense there was more hiding behind his words. She saw the tension in his jaw, the flicker of discomfort in his eyes, and understood that he was trying to distance himself from something deeper. Still, she pressed on gently but with an undeniable firmness. "Izuku," she said softly but with authority, "your feelings don't matter as much right now. What matters is that you're helping me. Helping me get her Katsuki back. And I'm asking you to do this for me, not for her. You understand?" Her tone made it clear this wasn't a request. It was an order. He hesitated for a moment, weighing his options, then finally nodded, knowing that refusal wouldn't sit well with her. It wasn't just about obeying her commands. It was about the weight of her words, the unspoken history between them, and the uneasy understanding that some things could only be done because she said so. She sighed deeply, as if carrying a heavy burden herself. "You're going to help me retrieve her," she declared with quiet resolve, "not because she deserves it, but because I do. And because I say so. That's an order from your mother." Her voice left no room for argument, the tone firm yet tinged with sorrow that only a mother's love knows how to conceal. With that, the little group moved out, reluctant but obedient. They navigated the city streets, their steps hurried and cautious, forming a tight diamond formation to shield Inko from the prying eyes of paparazzi and bystanders. Cameras flashed and shouted questions, but the formation kept her protected, their bodies acting as a barrier against invasive scrutiny. Each member of the team kept their focus sharp, senses heightened, knowing that their mission carried weight. Upon reaching the hospital, they entered with a sense of purpose. The sterile smell of disinfectant filled the air, mingling with the low hum of machinery and the muffled footsteps of visitors. Inside the hospital room, they found Katsuki Bakugo awake, glaring fiercely at the wall, but also suffused with an unmistakable sense of humiliation. His face was marked with bruises, scratches, and signs of exhaustion, but his eyes were sharp, blazing with anger and frustration. He turned his head as soon as he saw them, his jaw clenched tightly. "What the hell are you all doing here?" he barked out, voice rough and strained. His expression twisted with a mix of fury and bitterness. "You think I want your concern? Save it. I don't need any pity." His eyes flicked to Inko and the rest of the team, clearly feeling exposed, vulnerable even in his anger. I bullied him, yeah, Kitsuki snapped, voice trembling with rage, because that dumb fuck refused to give up his dream of being a hero, even when he's quirkless. I didn't do it to hurt him. I was trying to save his damn life. Honestly, I thought I was doing the right thing, even if I went about it wrong. Her words echoed sharply in the room, each one dripped with defiance and an undercurrent of pain. The team Najimi, Anko, and Kurenai stood in silence, their eyes narrowing at her. They shared a look of disapproval as if silently condemning her words and her attitude. They knew that Kitsuki's anger was a mask for something deeper, a crush of frustration, embarrassment, and shame that no one was willing to say aloud. The atmosphere grew heavier as everyone grappled with the truth, raw, unresolved, and messy. Each face reflected a mixture of concern, anger, and worry. The room itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move, the next confrontation, the next step forward into a future neither of them could clearly see. He just vanished into the shadows, then reappeared years later, not as the kid I knew, but as a fully trained hero. His muscles were more defined, his movements sharper, and more confident. When he finally struck, it was with enough force to send me sprawling to the ground, unconscious. Seeing that, I felt a strange mixture of pride and rage swirl inside me. Part of me wanted to cheer, proud that he had grown strong enough to defeat me. But the other part burned with fury, furious because he had hit me so hard, so unforgivingly. I was angry at myself for not being good enough, angry at him for acting like some kind of hero, without even trying to help me earlier. And yet, despite all that anger, I couldn't ignore what he did next. He saved me. Lifted me up, even as I was bleeding and battered. He dragged me out of danger, risking everything to do what I couldn't do for myself. That hit me hard. Still, watching all those pro-heroes standing around, doing nothing, made my blood boil. They just watched, useless and indifferent, while he stepped up. It made me question everything I thought I knew about heroism. I was close to quitting right there, giving up on the dream I held onto so tightly. Sometimes, I even wondered if I should just jump off the roof, like I had joked earlier. If I was about to fall anyway, maybe it was easier that way. What was the point of fighting, of trying to be a hero, when nobody really had my back? Suddenly, the quiet shattered. The door burst open with a loud crack, shoving the air aside. I looked up, heart pounding, as the figure that entered made everything else fade. It was Izuku, standing tall and fierce. His eyes burned with a storm of emotions, anger, frustration, pain. His whole posture radiated fury, like he was ready to tear down the very walls around us. His voice, when he spoke, didn't hold back. It was a raw, icy blast that cut through the tension like a blade. His words hit hard, loaded with blame and passion. "You fucking coward," he shouted, voice trembling with rage. "Do you think this makes us even? Do you want forgiveness? Do you think any of us care? Live. Live with the guilt for what you've done. Let it eat you up. Prove you're more than just a scared kid hiding behind a mask. Show us that you can be better, that you want to be better. Maybe then, just maybe, you'll earn the respect I used to look up to. The respect I once thought I saw in you before everything fell apart." He paused then, eyes flashing with stubborn fire. His words weren't just anger, they carried a sense of heartbreak. I saw the struggle in him, the disappointment that had been building for so long. It was like he finally let go of holding back all the frustration he'd kept bottled up. I could see the scars in his expression, the pain of feeling betrayed, of watching someone he thought was brave turn into someone so hesitating, so afraid. I wondered if he was angry at me or at himself for feeling this way. I wondered if he wished he could take back the words, or if this was the only way he knew to make me see the truth. Mitsuki, stunned by the sudden explosion, whispered softly but with stunned disbelief. His voice cracked, trembling with unexpected vulnerability. "You respected me? Was that possible? After everything I'd done, everything I'd said?" It sounded like he hadn't even believed it himself, like he didn't realize how much he'd meant to me once. I nodded, voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah. I used to think you were amazing. I really did. I saw how you fought, how you pushed yourself. I looked up to you because you never gave up, no matter what. You were like a fire that refused to die out. I admired that. I was proud of just being close to you. But then, everything changed. You crushed that image, shattered it with your cruel words and your blows. You made me feel small and insignificant. Like I was just a bother to carry. Like I wasn't worth saving." My voice quivered, but I kept going. "That's why I'm so mad. Because I believed in you. I believed in us. And now, I feel like I've been betrayed again and again. I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd see what's really important. That we're more than just rivals or enemies. But you threw it all away." The genie stepped forward then, her posture calm, even reassuring. She had that eerie, unsettling smile, the kind that made people instinctively wary. She handed Kitsuki a strange-looking apple, its surface gleaming strangely in the dim light. Its skin shimmered with unnatural colors, like a jewel that had been cooked under too much heat. "Eat it," she said softly. Her voice was smooth and soothing, but carried an edge of warning. "This is a synthetic devil fruit. A gum type like the one you hear about in legends. It's designed to help your body handle your quirk better. To give you control and stability. It might even increase your strength. You're smart enough to understand what this means. It's a chance to change the game, to rewrite your limits." Mitsuki's eyes widened in shock. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, trying to process what he'd just been told. Then he blurted out, voice dripping with confusion and suspicion, "What the fuck?" His brow furrowed deeply. "Are you serious? This thing. It's some kind of joke, right?" His mind raced, trying to piece together what he was holding. Was this really happening? Was it even safe? Could he really trust her? Or was this just another cruel trick? The genie tilted her head slightly, her smile never fading. "You don't have to say yes right away. I get it. It's a lot to take in. But think about it. If you refuse, you'll stay exactly as you are, weak, vulnerable to everything. Standing there with your hands tied. And if you accept, you might be able to stand your ground better and fight smarter. It's your choice. But make no mistake, your current state isn't enough. Not if you want to survive what's coming." Her words hung heavy in the air. She looked at him expectantly, her eyes piercingly calm. "So, what's it gonna be, fraidy cat? Are you going to stay a coward, or are you ready to take a chance?" Mitsuki stared at the apple, his mind swirling with fears and doubts. Could he trust her? Did he even understand what she was offering? Was this a way to cheat fate, or was it a dangerous gamble? He felt the weight of everyone's eyes on him, your expectations, the silent hopes he'd seen in Izuku's eyes earlier. For a moment, he hesitated, caught between pride and fear. Then, slowly, his hand reached out, clutching the strange fruit. His fingers trembled, but he knew deep down this was his choice. To stay weak or to try something new, something risky. And maybe, just maybe, it was the only way forward. In the depths of the hidden city, Orochimaru moved with a calm but urgent purpose. His sharp eyes scanned the quiet alleyways and shadowed corners, searching relentlessly for Izuku. The last time he saw the boy, a faint sense of foreboding clung to his thoughts. Orochimaru believed this was the perfect moment to begin a crucial process, one that could shape Izuku's future in ways he didn't yet understand. His plan was clear. To help the boy confront and release the dark, repressed emotions buried deep inside him. These emotions, if unleashed properly, could serve as a powerful tool, allowing Izuku to stabilize his spirit and gain control over his true potential. To do so, Orochimaru had slipped a special drug into the Izuku tea, a carefully crafted serum designed not just for sedation, but for a more profound effect. It was meant to stimulate the release of emotional barriers that Izuku had built around himself, barriers born from fear, shame, anger, and shame, things that had been bottled up for so long they had become almost like armor. Orochimaru believed that by unleashing these feelings, the boy could truly confront his inner demons, purify his mind, and find balance. The drug, in his view, would act as a catalyst, awakening the suppressed emotions so they could be processed and integrated into his spirit. He had prepared everything meticulously, confident in the plan's success. But what Orochimaru didn't foresee was Izuku's sudden disappearance. No matter how thoroughly he checked the winding city streets, the vacant rooftops, or the lush hidden gardens tucked away in the city's shadowed corners, Izuku was nowhere to be found. The boy had vanished into thin air, leaving Orochimaru frustrated and more worried than he cared to admit. His mind raced, trying to grasp where the boy could have gone, or if some accident had occurred. Orochimaru's sense of calm was starting to crack under the weight of this unexpected setback. He knew he couldn't leave it to chance. The intimacy of his plan depended heavily on control of the environment and, most importantly, control over Izuku's emotional state. Panic was not an option. With a heavy sigh, he decided his only move was to seek help from the one person who could provide answers: Naruto, the Hokage. Orochimaru's demeanor was blunt, almost cold, as he strode into the Hokage's office with no need for a preamble. His piercing gaze fixed directly on Naruto, and his voice cut through the air with straightforward urgency. "Where is Izuku?" he asked, not bothering with pleasantries or explanations. Naruto, busy at his desk with scrolls and paperwork piled high, looked up and blinked in surprise. "Izuku? Last I heard, he was with his team on an important mission. Why? Did something happen?" The Hokage's voice was calm, but his eyes showed concern. Naruto knew better than to ignore any strange developments involving his young allies. Orochimaru pressed further, his tone firm. "I need to find him. He's not where he's supposed to be. This isn't a simple case of being late. He's truly gone missing." His eyes burned with a mix of worry and frustration. He hesitated before adding, "He's the boy my daughter is interested in dating. I want to make sure he's safe." The mention of his daughter's feelings was almost an afterthought, but it revealed Orochimaru's deeper concern. He wasn't just after Izuku for some scientific experiment or strategic mission. He cared, in his own cold way, about the boy's safety at least as much as his pride would let him admit. Still, he had no choice but to trust Naruto to keep things in perspective. Naruto stood from his desk and rubbed his chin, thinking quickly. They left the city 10 minutes ago for the mission. Team 7 received a new assignment, something to do with studying how pro-heroes train. They are going on an infiltration to UA, the hero school. They are supposed to observe, learn, and maybe even blend in. It's a huge opportunity for us. He paused, then added with a small smile, they left just before you came to speak to me, Orochimaru. I guess I should have told you earlier. Orochimaru's face paled a bit at that news. His body tensed and his mind raced to process the implications. UA? That's one of the most secure hero academies. If they're going there, I assume it's part of the mission, but it also means Izuku's with them. His voice faltered slightly, revealing the concern beneath his usually composed exterior. His eyes darkened as he thought about what could happen if Izuku's emotional stability was compromised, especially with the untested power of the serum he had planned to administer. I didn't realize it would involve such a risky mission, Orochimaru admitted, more to himself than to Naruto. The serum I prepared is designed specifically to target and release all emotional negative influences, things like anger, fear, guilt, and shame. It's supposed to help him confront his inner darkness, but if he's not there or if it's too late, his voice trailed off as a dark shadow crossed his face. He understood how dangerous this could become if Izuku's emotions spiraled out of control. Naruto looked at him with wary curiosity. What do you mean? How bad can it be if he becomes emotional? His voice was cautious. He had fought alongside many powerful heroes and faced countless enemies, but this situation felt different. It wasn't just about fighting villains. It was about something more internal, more fragile. Orochimaru exhaled slowly and explained, all his emotions could be released at once. If he's angry enough, if he's overwhelmed, the result could be dangerous not just to himself, but to everyone around him. His voice was steady, but his eyes gleamed with a warning. Imagine if he were so furious he lost control, like a volcano erupting too suddenly. That anger could cause massive destruction, harm innocent people, damage property, or even worse. He paused, then added, with a hint of grim humor that didn't hide the seriousness behind it, it's like if Choji were called fat again, which he hates, and Rock Lee got drunk and started fighting everyone, then multiplied that chaos 10 times over. The words hit Naruto hard. A vivid image filled his mind. A young boy, overwhelmed and unleashed, with his power spiraling out of control. It made the stakes crystal clear. If they didn't find Izuku quickly, there was a real danger, one that could escalate beyond their control. Worry constricted Naruto's chest. He clenched his fists, feeling a surge of responsibility. What do we do? We can't just leave him out there, especially if he's vulnerable right now. His voice was firm but laced with anxiety. Orochimaru nodded slowly, his usual calm demeanor flickering only barely as a sense of seriousness crept into his expression. His eyes darted briefly to Naruto, then back to the distant horizon. The slightest crack marred his composed facade, revealing the weight of the situation pressing down on him. His voice was steady but edged with urgency. Acting quickly is our best option now. I'll contact the teams immediately and order them to gather. Specifically, I want teams 8, 9, and 10 dispatched without delay. These teams are highly trained and seasoned in handling urgent and dangerous situations. I trust their skills in situations like this. His gaze sharpened as he assessed the terrain beyond the Hidden Leaf Village. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes time slow down, each second feeling like it could make or break the outcome. The team knew that a true encounter with Team 7 would take some time. Days could pass before they crossed paths, and the wait grew longer than expected. During this period, Izuku, along with Inko and Kurenai, took their responsibilities seriously. They understood the importance of security, especially when their safety was far from guaranteed. Every room in her apartment building was carefully inspected and reinforced, with reinforced locks, hidden hiding spots, and additional barriers that made entry difficult for anyone uninvited. They took no chances. Each of them understood that in a world where threats lurked around every corner, complacency could be deadly. Even if Inko, the landlord, offered to provide them with separate rooms inside her apartment, the trio was cautious. She could be well-meaning, but they knew better than to accept such overt security without proper reinforcement. The thought of being overly paranoid didn't escape Nagini's mind. She considered it a flaw of their cautious nature. Still, she was proud of her students. They had internalized her advice: never lower their guard, never take safety for granted, even in what seemed like a peaceful moment. Nagini watched them with a mixture of pride and concern. Her instinct told her to remain vigilant, no matter how calm their surroundings appeared. She knew that her students' resilience and careful vigilance would serve them well in the days ahead. Amid these preparations, Izuku's mind drifted to a different matter, an old, neglected part of his training. He knew that to become stronger, he needed to push himself outside his comfort zone. There was an unofficial training ground, a place that had once been nothing short of paradise. It used to be a pristine beach, lined with white sands and clear water, a place of peace and beauty. Now, it was more of an eyesore, a dumping ground for trash that had accumulated over the years. Still, Izuku saw potential in this spot. For him, it represented an opportunity to train under the shadow of the legendary hero, All Might. The idea was to mimic the hero's training routines, to push his limits, even if it meant starting at the bottom. He woke early the next morning, as the pale light of dawn broke across the horizon. The air was cool but invigorating, with the smell of salt and the faint odor of garbage lingering. Izuku's determination was clear as he stepped out, determined to make the most of the day. The beach was quiet, almost deserted, save for piles of discarded trash and debris scattered across the sand. As he made his way to the designated training spot, he could see the remnants of what once was a beautiful stretch of coastline. The waves lapped lazily at the shore, reflecting the first hues of sunrise, casting a golden glow that contrasted sharply with the trash strewn about. The scene wasn't glamorous, but Izuku kept his focus. Just as he arrived, a familiar figure appeared, Toshinori Yagi, better known as All Might in his hero form. The hero's appearance was imposing, with broad shoulders and a confident stance that commanded attention. Yet today, All Might looked different. His muscles, normally exaggerated in his hero form, seemed less defined. His face carried an almost tired expression, and the bright, inspiring smile was replaced with a more subdued one. He tried to make a good first impression, bursting into the scene with a hearty laugh. Well, if it isn't my young protege," he boomed, a twinkle of warmth in his eyes. Izuku's heart pounded, part from nerves, part from excitement. He had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was happening, doubt started to creep in. Was he truly prepared? Did he have what it took? As All Might approached, he began to change, his expression shifting from the confident hero to the more vulnerable, injured form he often appeared in after his many battles. The burden of his injuries was clear, his once indestructible form was now more fragile, the symbol of peace weighed down by years of suffering. "Good to see you got here early, Midoriya," All Might said, his voice a little softer than usual. His eyes twinkled with pride and something else, perhaps a touch of concern. "You want to know what training I've planned for you? Well, can you guess what I'm going to have you do to build your strength?" His tone was playful, but the message beneath was serious. The challenge was about more than just physical strength. It was about resilience, willpower, and determination. Izuku looked around, taking in the surroundings. The beach, with its heaps of trash and broken shells, seemed a strange training ground for a future hero. Still, he saw beyond the mess. He saw an opportunity to turn something broken into something stronger. His eyes traced the scattered debris, bottles, cans, fragments of wood, plastic bags caught in the wind, each item telling a story of neglect, of a world that had given up on this once beloved place. It struck him how symbolic this was. The beach was a symbol of life's vitality, and now it was a dumping ground. A place people thought could never be restored. This was the moment All Might was referring to. Izuku realized that the hero wasn't just about physical power. Training meant building character, resilience, and hope. The task was to clean up this mess, to restore some beauty to what was once a shining haven. It was a lesson in humility, perseverance, and dedication, values that every hero needed. "All Might," Izuku started, hesitating just a moment before speaking, "are you serious? You want me to just clean this up? But this isn't training, it's just clearing trash." All Might's proud smile widened. "That's right, Midoriya. Sometimes, to build strength, you need to serve others first. You see this beach? It's become a symbol of neglect. People gave up on it long ago, but if you clean it, if you help restore it, you're not just making the environment better. You're giving hope to the community. Showing that even the least likely places can shine again. Besides, training your body isn't just about smashing through walls or throwing punches. It's about mental strength, discipline, and the will to improve. This is a win-win situation. You grow stronger, and you help heal something that was broken. This beach deserves a second chance." Izuku listened carefully. His mind raced through thoughts of what this task meant. He wondered if this was enough to prepare him for real threats, for adversaries that were smarter and faster. Still, he understood the lesson. Heroism wasn't just about powers, it was about caring, about making small acts matter. Cleaning up trash was a form of heroism, too. He nodded slowly, feeling a mix of determination and doubt. The task seemed simple on the surface, but deep inside, he knew it symbolized something much bigger. It was about perseverance, about choosing to rebuild even when the odds seemed stacked against him. The challenge was daunting, but if it meant becoming stronger and making a difference, he would accept it. "Alright, then," Izuku said softly, a newfound resolve in his voice. "I'll do it. I'll clean this beach, and I'll train my body in the process." All Might clapped him on the shoulder, his expression proud. "Good. That's the spirit, young Midoriya. Remember, every hero starts somewhere. This may seem small now, but it's the foundation of something great. Keep that in mind and never forget the importance of hope and service. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the trash-strewn shore, Izuku felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. He understood that heroism wasn't always glamorous or straightforward. Sometimes, it was about humble beginnings, about knowing that real strength came from within and that even broken places could be restored through effort, persistence, and the will to make a difference. Chapter 8. This is a My Hero Academia and Naruto crossover fanfiction. Other franchises will be included. And changes were made to improve chapters 6 and 7, hope you enjoy them. The day started with a heavy sense of duty weighing on him. As soon as he arrived at the beach, his eyes immediately fell on the chaos stretched out before him. Shattered pieces of furniture, toppled appliances, and discarded garbage sprawled across the sand and water, a testament to careless human actions and nature's relentless erosion. His first task was to move these massive objects, a job that could easily be simplified using his shadow clone technique. Creating 6 or more duplicates would allow him to split the workload, make quick work of the heavy lifting, and quickly sort the debris. But he hesitated. This was a rare chance to test his own strength and development, not just rely on clones. He clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the moment. With a deep breath, Izuku stepped forward. His muscles tensed as he grabbed a heavy wooden dresser, the wood soaked and swollen from the salt water. He could feel the moisture seeping into the fibers, making it heavier than it looked. Carefully, so as not to cut himself on jagged wood or rusted metal edges, he lifted it upright. His mind drifted briefly to the fact that if he relied solely on clones, he wouldn't truly learn anything. It was about proving he could handle this with his own strength. Moving through volcanic effort, he shoveled the items into 2 piles. One was clearly for repair an old beat-up sofa with broken springs and a battered chest of drawers. The other pile was for recycling or scrap a rusted refrigerator, a broken washing machine, and a mangled television. Many pieces bore the scars of neglect, their surfaces corroded by salt and sun, metals rusted through in patches, edges jagged and dangerous. The task was hard, but it felt good to put in real effort. Every piece he moved, he scrutinized. When he encountered damaged furniture, he had to be cautious. Some items, like a metal chair, had sharp rusted edges that could slice open his palms or legs if he wasn't careful. He paused now and then to check his footing, making sure the sand beneath him stayed firm as he strained to lift and toss heavy objects. The air was thick, the wind blowing salt and spray into his face, making his eyes water. Despite the discomfort, he felt a strange sense of pride. Each item brought him closer to restoring some semblance of order to this chaos. As he progressed, his thoughts began to shift. His mind lingered on the abandoned vehicles nearby. Large trucks and cars had been dumped there, some toppled and rusted beyond recognition. He looked at them with a mixture of anger, sadness, and confusion. How could people just discard these massive machines like they were nothing? The more he stared, the more a strange feeling of rage bubbled up inside him. The act of seeing those metal behemoths neglected and left to decay stoked a fierce desire to strike. Without thinking, he clenched his fists tighter. His hands curled into fists and with a sudden surge of emotion, he began punching them. His fists connected with a large truck's door with a loud bang. The metal dented inward under the force, paint peeling as his knuckles scraped against the rough surface. The sound echoed across the beach, a harsh reminder of his pent-up frustration. He kept punching, harder and harder, until the metal gave way, caving in under his blows. Small dents spread across the truck surface, and it shuddered as he pounded. The sensation was oddly exhilarating, an outlet for his anger at the carelessness that led to this waste. His mind flashed with memories of childhood bullies, moments he'd long buried but suddenly resurfaced now. The feeling of helplessness, of never being able to fight back, twisted inside him. Now, with each punch, he felt like he was reclaiming some of his own strength. This initial effort marked only the beginning of the cleanup. The beach still bore scars, and there was plenty more to do. He knew this wouldn't be finished in one day, but the act of working with his own power fueled his determination. It was testing him, physically and mentally, forcing him to push past limits he doubted he had. His muscles burned, sweat dripped from his brow, but he refused to stop. Meanwhile, a little ways away, 2 others were busy preparing for their own challenge. Inko and Kurenai had been scouting the local school in quiet preparation for a different reason. Their task wasn't just about cleaning or physical work. It was about readiness. The Hokage had recently announced that they would be taking a written test for entry into a special school, and both girls wanted to be prepared. They carried papers, notebooks, and a few books, studying the layout and trying to glean clues about what might appear on the exam. They knew the school had a reputation for challenging students, testing not just their knowledge, but their ability to think under pressure. As they surveyed the school grounds, Kurenai pointed out several areas they should focus on. Look at the way the courtyard is set up, she said quietly, eyes narrowing. If there's a pattern, it'll probably be something similar on the test layout, types of questions, maybe even how they ask certain problems. Inko nodded, flipping through her notes. Remember, every year they give a written exam at the academy, usually after each year of study. It's like a tradition. That means they expect us to know how it works, to prepare for questions that might dip into math, language, and even logic puzzles. The two girls shared a glance, nodding in understanding. They knew that their tests would likely cover a broad range of subjects, and knowing the format was crucial. Kurenai with her analytical mind, and Inko with her quick instincts, made a good team. Their plans included reviewing past test questions they'd managed to find online and practicing some sample questions. They wanted no surprises, especially since the exam was a gateway to the school that could shape their future. Their conversations drifted to what they feared most: failing the exam would mean losing their chance at a better education. But beneath their calm exterior, each girl harbored private worries. Would they remember everything they needed? Would their nerves betray them? The weight of that possibility pressed on their minds as they studied the school's layout, imagining the test in their minds and trying to spot every detail that could give them an advantage. As the day wore on, their preparations didn't stop. They felt the pressure mounting but used it as motivation. They knew that being well prepared was more than just knowing facts. It was about understanding the pattern, the flow of questions, and the minutes it needed to succeed. Both girls were determined to do their best, even if doubts fluttered at the back of their minds. Meanwhile, Izuku moved through each task with a mix of focus and frustration. His muscles ached, yet he kept pushing himself. The debris was a constant reminder of how much work lay ahead, but he knew every effort counted. The sound of his fists hitting metal echoed across the shoreline, a rhythm of raw emotion and determination. At that moment, as the sun shone overhead and the waves crashed nearby, he understood that this day was more than just about cleaning a beach. It was about proving himself, about embracing his strength, and about facing his fears head-on. By the end of that long, exhausting day, he had moved an incredible amount of heavy furniture and household items. He lugged 10 sofas, each one bulky and awkward, trying to avoid injuring himself, but knowing that the task was almost impossible without help. His arms ached from gripping and shifting the weighty cushions, every muscle screaming for rest. He also hauled 3 beds, their frames creaking loudly as he pushed and pulled them across the floors. Moving beds proved even more difficult because of their size and the tangled mess of sheets and mattresses that made maneuvering tricky. Along with the furniture, he carried 2 stoves, metal boxes filled with old wires and knobs that seemed to weigh a ton, and a refrigerator that was huge and cold to the touch. Then came the massive chest freezer, a beast of a machine that felt like it took all his strength just to get it to where he needed it. By the time evening arrived, he realized that this wasn't even close to a warm-up. None of this compared to what he was about to do next. He remembered how he lost control after hearing his mother's cruel words. That fury had taken over him completely. Something inside snapped. Without thinking, he grabbed a small compact sedan parked nearby, his eyes narrowing in rage, and he didn't stop until that car was nothing but a pile of crumpled metal and shattered glass. The metal screeched and folded beneath his raw strength, tires bursting apart, windows cracking into millions of tiny shards until the entire thing was crushed flat. The fury had fueled his entire body, making him forget all caution. His knuckles bled from the effort and his hands felt numb, yet he kept going. His screams of rage echoed through the empty streets, raw and primal, making even Toshinori, who watched from a distance, flinch with surprise and concern. He was practically wild, driven by a mixture of pain and pure fury. Toshinori wondered what it really was that drove Izuku to such destruction. His voice shook with disbelief as he yelled out, almost like a cry for help. What happened to him? What did Kitsuki do this time? The scene felt unreal, like a storm unleashed from deep inside, with Izuku's screams echoing into the night, almost close to a scream for bloody murder. It was a moment frozen in time, raw but undeniably powerful. Once he was done with all that destruction, he decided to go home. He used his quirk special gravity seals he'd learned to master, platforming himself into a quick run. His legs moved faster than normal, skimming across the pavement effortlessly. All he wanted was to leave that chaos behind and find some kind of peace, even if just for a while. As he ran, his thoughts drifted to a corner he often passed, an old music shop on the way home, its windows filled with the glow of colorful speakers, guitars, and amplifiers. Today, something caught his eye. A young woman was standing outside, focused intently on a pair of speakers. Her gaze was serious, almost contemplative, like she was lost in thought. Curiosity nudged him. He slowed just enough to catch her eye and called out gently, "Hey, do you need help with something?" Her response was unexpected. She looked surprised, almost startled, and seemed shy. Her cheeks reddened slightly as she looked down at her feet, hesitating before answering. It was then that he noticed something unusual about her ears, two small protrusions that looked like headphone jacks dangling from her earlobes. That detail set her apart and made her more interesting than a typical music lover. She explained softly that she was trying to get into UA the hero school, though she admitted she faced a big obstacle. Her quirk allowed her to amplify sound, but only in limited ways. She could boost the volume of speakers with her power, making music or noise louder, but the equipment was just too big and cumbersome to carry into the practical exams. She needed something smaller, something portable, so she could use her power more effectively on the test. Her voice carried a layer of hope and frustration, hope because she wanted to succeed, and frustration because her current abilities felt limited. She introduced herself as Kyoka. Her family background intrigued him. They'd been music lovers for generations, owners of a local music shop and teachers of lessons across the city. She was shy but earnest, and her passion for music shone through her words. Listening closely, he wondered how her family's love of music intersected with her desire to become a hero. Maybe music was her way of expressing herself when words failed or saving her strength for more important moments. Izuku's mind quickly went into overdrive, considering her situation. His mind was filled with a vast well of knowledge. He'd accumulated a library of facts, ideas, and possibilities. He wondered if there was a device she hadn't thought of yet. Could there be a small wearable gadget that amplified her voice? A device that someone like her, with limited power, could use without hassle or needing to carry bulky equipment. He thought about the tech he'd read about: small, lightweight, easy to operate. That's when an idea clicked in his mind. Tentatively, he asked her, "Do you know about devices that can amplify a voice? Ones you can wear like a piece of jewelry or a small collar. Something that can help someone who has lost their voice or is injured to speak. Or even for people who are mute so they can communicate more easily." His own curiosity grew as he imagined how such a device might look. A small, unobtrusive gadget no bigger than a thick choker necklace that could fit comfortably around her neck. The idea was simple but powerful. He continued, "If you used a device like that, maybe you could amplify your own voice. It might make a big difference in how you use your quirk, especially during exams or real fights. It could help you speak louder and clearer without relying on large speakers or equipment." He paused briefly, trying to gauge her reaction. Thoughts whirled in his mind: what if it worked? What if such a small device could give her the confidence to stand out? To become a hero in her own right? He remembered how limited her current options seemed, and that frustration rose again. The device he had in mind would be no bigger than a necklace, simple to carry, and easy to activate. It was designed for all kinds of uses, from helping injured people find their voice to allowing mute individuals to speak again. The possibilities were endless, and he felt a strange surge of determination. Maybe, just maybe, he could help her. Help her realize her dream, even if it was just a little step forward. The thought of her trying to figure out the device, testing it, and watching her face light up when she finally succeeded filled him with a strange mix of hope and nervousness. He wondered if she'd trust him or if she'd be wary of someone offering help out of nowhere. Still, something about her sincerity and her quiet determination drew him in. Perhaps, no matter how broken or limited someone felt, there was always a way to find hope. He just had to find it and maybe, along the way, help others discover their own. Izuku had always been somewhat of a mystery when it came to his talents outside of hero training. Despite his humble attitude, he did mention once that he knew how to play an instrument. It was a skill he picked up during his time at a distant school, a place where he was able to escape the constant pressure of his expectations and focus on something purely for himself. That skill was the acoustic guitar. He had learned to play it over countless evenings spent in quiet practice, strumming simple melodies and expanding his abilities little by little. The sound of the guitar, mellow and warm, had become a comfort for him. He explained to Kyoka that he enjoyed playing a wide variety of music genres. His playlist was surprisingly diverse, everything from classic country and western songs, which he adored for their storytelling quality, to catchy pop tunes that he found hard not to sing along with. Truly, he could perform a little bit of everything, and he enjoyed experimenting with different styles, often blending them into unique covers or improvisations. His voice was far from perfect, more earnest than polished, but that sincerity seemed to touch people. Kyoka was genuinely interested when he shared this part of himself. She leaned closer, eyes brightening with curiosity as she listened. "You actually play? That's pretty cool," she said softly, a hint of admiration in her voice. "I never took you for the musical kind." Her own quirky urge acts that enabled her to amplify sounds or even manipulate them made her naturally attracted to people involved with sound and music, and hearing about Izuku's guitar playing sparked her interest even more. He nodded, chuckling softly. "Yeah, I learned over time. It's a fun way to relax." His hands had a natural way of moving over the strings, instinctively finding the chords. "I guess I started because I always liked music, but I didn't focus much on doing anything serious with it." His face softened as he remembered those quieter days, sitting alone with his guitar, playing into the night. Playing songs spanning different genres was his way of broadening his horizons, a small act of rebellion against the feeling that he always had to be the perfect hero in training. Kyoka's face lit up again. "You should come by and play sometime," she said eagerly. "Your music sounds really nice. Maybe you could even teach me a few things." Her voice held a genuine warmth and Izuku could sense the friendly sincerity behind her words. Then she hesitated, her expression shifting back into her more shy demeanor. "Hey, if you're free this weekend, maybe you could visit my family. I'd like to introduce you to my parents." She sounded a little hesitant but mostly hopeful, as if she sensed from his tone that he wouldn't decline. It was the kind of invitation that made Izuku feel both excited and a little nervous, as if walking a tightrope between making a new friend and worrying about how they might judge him. Izuku hesitated for just a second, then smiled warmly. "If I have some free time, I'd be happy to come." His mind raced with possibilities. What if her parents asked him questions about his hero plans? Would he be able to hold a conversation without sounding like he was giving a hero pitch? Still, he trusted Kyoka. She was straightforward, and that kind of honesty made him feel comfortable. Her face brightened with happiness. There was a sparkle in her eyes, a sense of relief that he accepted her invitation. She looked proud, pleased that she'd found someone willing to meet her family and see her world outside of hero training. For someone like her, someone criticized constantly for not having what some call a flashy quirk, that feeling of genuine acceptance was priceless. Growing up, Kyoka had endured many comments mocking her for her quirk, and some people had even looked down on her, treating her as if she couldn't become a real hero. Those comments had made her doubt herself and made her feel like she was never enough. But Izuku's willingness to listen and his kind response eased some of that pressure. She appreciated that he didn't judge her for the way she looked or for her quirk. Instead, he saw her as a person, as a friend. That sense of connection was new for her, and it filled her with hope, a hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find genuine companionship without the shadows of her past criticisms constantly haunting her. Satisfied and a little more confident after their conversation, Izuku took off running down the street. It was almost instinctive, like a scene from a story he used to watch when he was a kid. His movements were quick and fluid, inspired by tours he'd seen of Rock Lee's impressive speed and agility. Only, he was glad he wasn't wearing that green spandex. This time, he preferred to keep things simple. His sneakers hit the pavement and he pushed himself with determination, feeling the wind whip past his face as he raced toward home. When he finally arrived at his house, he slowed down just a little, catching his breath before turning off the gravity seal that had been enhancing his speed. Inside, the familiar rooms awaited him, familiar yet always full of life. The walls were lined with posters of hero idols, a few framed photographs of his classmates, and scattered notes indicating shared plans and assignments. Walking inside, Izuku headed straight to where Najimi was lounging. Her eyes lit up when she saw him and immediately asked how his day had gone. He told her precisely what had happened, every detail, from how Kyoka had listened closely to his music talk to her invitation to visit her family. Najimi was an earnest friend and mentor for him, her keen understanding making it easy for him to open up. As he explained, Najimi chuckled softly, nudging her head against his shoulder. "You're making progress, Izuku. Someone like Kyoka, she's got a strong personality, but she also values kindness. I think inviting her to meet your family will mean a lot to her." She looked amused when she added, "And I can tell you're already getting pretty good at flirting. That girl's got her eyes on you, especially if she's eager for you to meet her parents." Her teasing tone only made Izuku blush slightly, but he couldn't deny there was some truth to it. He had been thinking about Kyoka's kindness and her openness all day. The atmosphere in their shared home felt comfortable and warm. Izuku's fears about how he would be perceived slowly eased into a quiet confidence. With Najimi by his side, he felt ready to face whatever new challenges or social adventures might come next. The following morning broke clear and bright, with the first rays of sunlight slipping over the horizon and casting a soft glow across the tranquil beach. It was the kind of dawn that promised new beginnings and fresh challenges. He arrived early, as if drawn by some deep instinct, and took a brisk walk toward the shoreline. His eyes immediately fixated on Toshinori, who stood a little apart from a pile of large, heavy stones that had been dragged across the sand. Toshinori was watching over Izuku's training, his posture calm yet alert, observing every move with keen interest. Izuku was already there, sweat glistening on his forehead, muscles tense with effort. He was pushing, dragging, and lifting those massive stones, trying to master control over his own strength. It was grueling work, more so because the stones were damn heavy, each one a challenge to move, and he kept pushing himself to do more. His face was set in a determined expression, the kind someone would have when fighting against odds that seemed insurmountable. He was pushing himself to the limit, trying to forge a power that felt just outside his grasp. The moment was silent but intense, filled with the sounds of sand squeaking under his feet and the muffled grunts he made. Toshinori's steady gaze tracked his movements, offering silent encouragement as Izuku heaved yet another large stone from the sand. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, Izuku's senses caught a flicker of movement, someone approaching at a steady, confident pace. His heart skipped a beat, unsure of what to expect. This was no ordinary visitor. The day had a strange weight to it, like a message from the universe that important things were about to unfold. Then, out of nowhere, a voice boomed with a joyful, almost teasing tone. "Yosh. My young friend, you are truly showing your flames of youth today." The words echoed through the morning air, making Izuku freeze for a moment. He turned sharply, confusion flickering across his face as he tried to process who was speaking. The voice was familiar yet unexpected. It belonged to a man dressed in bright green spandex, his demeanor radiating energy and warm confidence. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise. This wasn't a random stranger. It was someone he had briefly met before once during a brief encounter in the hidden city, where the hustle and bustle of secret dealings and hidden missions thrived beneath the surface. Now, here he was, standing in front of him with a wide grin. The man's presence seemed as if he had stepped right out of the pages of a comic book. Without a second thought, Izuku hurried over, feeling an odd yet familiar sense of excitement. As he closed the distance, he wrapped his arms around the green-suited man's shoulders in a quick, enthusiastic hug, an expression of pure camaraderie. After the hug, they exchanged a firm fist bump, a gesture born from years of training and shared battles in different worlds. The moment was awkward yet warm, filled with unspoken understanding between two warriors from different lands. "You're here," Izuku said breathlessly. "Lee, what are you doing here? I wasn't expecting to see anyone from Konoha outside of my team. It's been so long, I thought I'd only see you back home." His voice trembled slightly, a blend of surprise and curiosity. His thoughts raced. What could this mean? Why had someone from the hidden leaf village appeared now? Was this just a coincidence, or did it have a deeper meaning? Lee, the man clad in vivid green, chuckled softly, his face lighting up with genuine amusement. "The Hokage sent 3 teams to back yours up," he explained, the tone straightforward, but carried a sense of urgency. "Something happened on your mission, and it became clear you needed extra support. My team just happened to arrive first. You're not alone anymore." His eyes sparkled as he continued. "Teams 8, 9, and 10 are all coming to join you. They're on their way and will arrive shortly. We're here to back you up." Izuku blinked, trying to process all the information at once. The news was a shock, but a welcome one. The idea of more support gave him a flicker of relief. He'd been carrying a lot on his shoulders lately. Still, there was a layer of concern beneath his excitement. What exactly was going on? Why was the Hokage involving multiple teams? What threat had been detected that needed this much backup? Lee caught Izuku's expression and nodded firmly. "From what I hear, All Might himself has been training you," Lee said, a hint of admiration creeping into his voice. "He's made it clear that you need to be ready for everything. It's good. That man, the one they call All Might, has a way of pushing his students beyond what they thought possible. Looks like he's doing a good job. I see that you're showing the same fiery spirit that I've heard about." Izuku felt a surge of pride at those words. The mention of All Might, his mentor and symbol of strength, meant a lot to him. He was determined to rise to these new challenges. Picking himself up from the sand, he tried to keep calm and focus on the task ahead. "Thanks," he said softly. "That means a lot. Actually, this training has been different. It's not what I expected." His voice trailed off as he explained how he was making progress, yet still facing difficulties. He went on to describe his methods, a combination of creative training and makeshift tools. Because he didn't have access to chakra weights, he had to improvise with gravity seals. "They're basically symbols I draw on my arms and legs," Izuku explained. "Once activated, they increase the gravity around me, making everything about training more intense. It's like trying to lift a mountain with every movement. I can't rely on chakra or physical weights, so I use seals to simulate that resistance." He paused, then added with a small smile, "And it works. It forces me to push past my limits faster than I could with normal strength training. It's difficult, but I can see the progress. I'm technically not as strong as I need to be yet, but I'm catching up." His confidence grew with each word, driven by how much he wanted to prove himself not just to others, but to himself. Toshinori watched Izuku closely, nodding in approval. Despite the fatigue lining the boy's face, he clearly understood the importance of this unconventional training. Turning to Lee, Toshinori asked, "How is the team doing? Are the others close behind?" Lee nodded, glancing down the beach toward the horizon where dust clouds hinting at arrival could be seen. "They're en route, but they'll need some time. This isn't just about brute strength. There are other factors, other threats. That's why we're here, to provide as much backup as possible." His voice grew serious for a moment as he added, "The mission you're on is dangerous. We'll do everything we can to support you." Izuku took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. The support was reassuring, yet it also brought new fears. Could he really handle what was coming? Would he be enough? Questions swirled in his mind, but he pushed them aside. He had faced worse before. The flames of youth burned bright within him. He was ready to push forward, no matter what lay ahead. At that moment, the sound of distant footsteps and the hum of arriving vehicles broke the silence. The other team's Team 8, led by Kiba, and Team 10, led by Shikadai Nara were approaching. Their presence signaled the start of a larger confrontation. Izuku's heart raced with anticipation. His team would be reinforced, and with strengthened numbers and new training methods, maybe they could face the upcoming dangers. Looking at Toshinori and Lee, Izuku knew this was a turning point. A test of everything he had learned, everything he was willing to become. The fear of failure remained, but it was overshadowed by the hope of emerging stronger. With his friends and new allies arriving, he didn't feel quite so alone anymore. Not yet. But the road ahead was long, and the flames of youth still flickered, eager to blaze brighter than ever. What if Naruto x Inko x Mitsuki harem and My Hero Academia end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.